They say every building needs an honest foundation, but my family was constructed entirely on elaborate deceptions, mine about money, hers about crime. When the truth finally emerged on the Capitol steps I'd painted for years, we discovered that sometimes you have to tear everything down to the foundation before you can build something real. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The morning sun caught the golden dome of the New York State Capitol just right, making it gleam like a promise against the clear Albany sky. I stood on the scaffolding, paintbrush in hand, touching up the ornate trim work that framed one of the building's 100-year-old windows. From up here, 40 feet above the ground, I could see the entire Empire State Plaza spread out like a concrete kingdom. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, literally painting the seat of power, while sitting on a secret that could buy the whole damn building. But that's getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you a different picture first, the one everyone else saw when they looked at Jensen Thompson in 2010. "Dad, you're gonna be late!" Addison's voice carried up from the driveway where she stood next to our beat-up 2003 Honda Pilot, her soccer bag slung over one shoulder. At 15, she had her mother's sharp features but my stubborn streak, a combination that meant she never let me forget anything. "Coming, sweetheart," I called back, securing my paint supplies in the work shed. It was Saturday, which meant tournament day, which meant the whole Thompson family would pile into that old SUV and drive to whichever field Addison's team was destroying their competition on this week. That was us, the Thompsons of Pine Hollow Subdivision, Albany, New York. Just your average American family living the average American dream. Suburban house with a mortgage, 2 kids, a dog that refused to stop digging up Emerson's garden, and enough love between us to make even the cynics believe in happily ever after, or so I thought. "Jensen, honey, don't forget the cooler." Emerson appeared in the doorway, looking like she'd stepped out of a suburban mom catalog. Blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, designer sunglasses perched on her head, though she'd bought them at TJ Maxx, she was always quick to point out. She had this way of making discount store finds look like Fifth Avenue, a talent I'd admired since we met 18 years ago. "Already in the car," I said, jogging over to kiss her cheek. She smelled like vanilla and that expensive perfume she'd treated herself to last Christmas. "Though I notice you packed it with that fancy sparkling water again instead of good old Gatorade." She laughed, that tinkling sound that still made my chest warm even after 16 years of marriage. "The other parents judge, Jensen. You know how it is." I didn't, actually. The other parents' lawyers, state employees, a couple of doctors. They lived in a different world from the guy who spent his days hanging off the Capitol building with a paintbrush. But Emerson navigated their world like she was born to it, which in a way, she was. Her work as a financial advisor meant she rubbed shoulders with Albany's upper middle class daily, helping them grow their retirement funds and plan their futures. "Mom, seriously, we need to go," Mackenzie's voice piped up from the back seat. At 13, our younger daughter had hit that age where everything was either life or death urgent or completely beneath her attention. All right. Thompson family road trip commencing," I announced, sliding behind the wheel. The drive to the soccer complex gave me time to do what I did best those days, watch my family, and marvel at how normal it all seemed. Emerson typed away on her phone, probably answering client emails even on a Saturday. Addison had her earbuds in but kept one ear free to monitor Mackenzie's rambling story about some drama in her friend group. The morning sun slanted through the windows, turning everything golden and perfect. Nobody looking at us would have guessed that the man driving this beat-up SUV owned Empire State Construction, the company that had built half the government buildings in New York State over the past 30 years. Nobody would have suspected that my personal net worth had crossed $2.4 billion the day I inherited the company from my mentor, Harold Morrison, back in 2007, and that's exactly how I wanted it. See, Harold had been more than a boss when I started working construction at 19. He'd been childless, brilliant, and saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself. When lung cancer took him, his will shocked everyone, especially me. Suddenly, I wasn't just Jensen the foreman anymore. I was Jensen the owner of an empire. But I'd made a decision that day, standing in that lawyer's office with papers that could change everything. I wouldn't let it change anything. Not the important stuff, anyway. "You sure this is what you want?" Madison Johnson had asked me. She'd been Harold's attorney and became mine, one of only 3 people who knew the truth. "You could live like a king, Jensen." "I already do," I'd told her, thinking of Emerson and our girls. "I've got everything I need, this money. It's just numbers on paper. What I want is to know that my family loves me for me, not for what I can buy them." So I kept working my job as a capital building painter technically employed by my own company, though nobody in the crew knew that. I came home each night with paint under my fingernails and stories about my day hanging off scaffolding. Emerson would massage my shoulders and tell me how proud she was of how hard I worked for our family. "You're such a good provider," she'd say, and I'd feel that mix of guilt and satisfaction that became my constant companion. Was it lying if I was still providing? Was it deception if my love was real? "Dad, you're spacing out again," Addison said, pulling me back to the present as we pulled into the soccer complex parking lot. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," I told her, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. She rolled her eyes in that teenage way, but she was smiling. "You're such a sap." "Guilty as charged." We set up our chairs on the sideline like we did every Saturday, Emerson with her travel mug of coffee, me with my water bottle, Mackenzie with her phone and a book she'd pretend to read while actually watching the game. This was our rhythm, our ritual, sacred in its simplicity. "Harrison texted," Emerson said, checking her phone. "He and Allison are coming to dinner tomorrow after church." Harrison was my brother-in-law, married to my sister Allison for the past 8 years. Good people, both of them. Harrison worked as an accountant for the state, steady and reliable. They lived across town in a house smaller than ours, scraping by on their state salaries, but happy. At least that's what I told myself when I watched them count pennies at restaurants while I had millions sitting in hidden accounts. "Sounds good," I said. "I'll throw something on the grill." "You always do," she said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Mr. Reliable. The game started, and I lost myself in the simple pleasure of watching my daughter dominate the field. Addison had this fierce grace when she played, all controlled power and strategic thinking. She got that from her mother, that ability to see 3 moves ahead, to position herself exactly where she needed to be. I should have been paying attention to that trait in Emerson, too. "She's gotten so good," Emerson murmured, pride evident in her voice. That summer camp was worth every penny. Every penny had been $800 that we'd saved for 6 months to afford. I'd written the check from our joint account, watching Emerson's face light up when Addison got accepted. Meanwhile, I could have bought the entire camp with what I made in interest in a single day. But that was my choice, my test, my way of making sure that what we had was real. The thing about secrets, though, is they require infrastructure. You can't just inherit $2.4 billion and hope nobody notices. You need systems, safeguards, legal frameworks to keep everything separate and protected. That's where the capital clause came in. Madison had helped me draft it back in 2007, a complex legal structure that protected both my family and my fortune. It was simple in concept, Byzantine in execution. If any immediate family member ever used my name or my company's for illegal purposes, they would immediately forfeit any claim to my assets and face prosecution for fraud. The clause was built into every company document, every financial instrument, every legal entity I controlled. "Why so harsh?" Madison had asked when we were finalizing the language. "Because I need to know," I'd explained. "I need to know that if the truth ever comes out, the people around me are who they say they are, that they haven't been playing me all along." That's a cynical way to look at it. "It's a careful way to look at it," I'd corrected. "Harold taught me that. Trust, but verify," he used to say, "and always have a backup plan." The clause had seemed like paranoid overkill at the time, Just another rich man's eccentricity, protecting wealth that nobody even knew existed. I never imagined I'd actually need it. Never dreamed that the woman cheering beside me at our daughter's soccer game, the woman I'd loved for 16 years, would be the one to trigger its provisions. Great save! Emerson jumped up as Addison blocked a shot on goal. That's my girl! I watched my wife celebrate, noticed how the other parents gravitated toward her, how she made everyone feel included in her orbit. She had this gift for making people trust her, for making them feel like she had their best interests at heart. Her financial advisory clients loved her for it. She'd built a solid practice over the years, helping teachers plan their retirements, guiding small business owners through investment options. You know, she said, settling back into her chair, the Martinezes asked me about that new development going up near the Capitol. The luxury condos? They're thinking of investing. The Apex Towers project? I knew it well my company was building it, though through 3 layers of subsidiary corporations. Seems risky. Big money for uncertain returns. That's what I told them, she said. But between you and me, I think it's going to be huge. The state's pumping money into downtown development. Property values are going to soar. She was right, of course. The project would triple in value within 5 years. I had the projection sitting in my private office that nobody knew about. The one in the Empire State Construction Building where I allegedly worked as a simple painter. Maybe we should invest, she said, her tone casual but her eyes sharp. I could move some things around, maybe pull from the retirement account. We can't afford that kind of risk, Em, I said, playing my part. Not on my salary. She sighed, but not with disappointment. More like, frustration? You're right, of course. Sometimes I wish we could give the girls more, you know? Better opportunities. They have everything they need. Need and want are different things, Jensen. It was a conversation we'd had before, this dance around money and ambition. Emerson had dreams, big ones. She wanted to send the girls to private school, wanted to take European vacations, wanted to move to one of those historic brownstones near Washington Park. All things I could afford 1,000 times over, but Jensen the painter couldn't. The girls are happy, I said. That's what matters. Happy now, she corrected. But what about college? What about their futures? Addison's smart enough for Ivy League, but can we afford it? We'll figure it out, we always do. She squeezed my hand again, but this time it felt different. Calculated, maybe. Or was I just being paranoid? The game ended with Addison's team winning 31. We did our usual post-game routine team snacks that Emerson had organized with military precision, photos with the other families, promises to see everyone at practice on Tuesday. Normal, wholesome, American dream stuff. On the drive home, I caught myself looking at my family differently, cataloging details I usually took for granted. The way Emerson angled her phone away when a text came in, how she'd started password protecting her laptop last month for client confidentiality. The new designer purse she'd hidden in the back of her closet that I'd found while looking for my winter boots. Earth to Dad, Mackenzie said. Mom's asking you something. Sorry, what? I said, do you mind if I go out tonight? Client dinner? The Washingtons want to discuss their portfolio over drinks at Angelo's. Angelo's was the fancy steakhouse downtown where meals cost more than I supposedly made in a day. On a Saturday? You know how it is. High net worth clients expect availability. She said it with a little laugh, like we were both in on the joke that she had high net worth clients while being married to a painter. Sure, go ahead. Girls and I will order pizza. You're the best, she said, and for a moment her smile seemed genuine. Warm, the smile I'd fallen in love with. That night, after Emerson left in a cloud of perfume and promises not to be too late, I sat with my daughters watching some teenage vampire show that Mackenzie insisted was totally epic. Addison was texting with friends, but she'd positioned herself on the couch so her feet were touching my leg, that unconscious need for connection that kids have with parents they trust. Dad, Addison said during a commercial, why don't you ever talk about your work? Like the details? Nothing much to talk about, sweetheart. I paint buildings. It's not exactly thrilling dinner conversation. But you've been doing it for so long. Don't you want more? I looked at my eldest daughter, really looked at her. She had my dark eyes, but her mother's sharp intelligence, that ability to see beneath surfaces. What I want, I said carefully, is sitting right here on this couch. Everything else is just noise. She studied me for a moment, then nodded and went back to her phone. But I caught her glancing at me throughout the evening, like she was trying to solve a puzzle she didn't quite understand yet. Later, after the girls had gone to bed, I stood in my home office, what I called my office anyway. It was really just a desk in the corner of our bedroom where I kept my work papers and did our taxes. Emerson had her own office downstairs, a converted den where she met with clients and kept her files in locked drawers that she said contained sensitive financial information. I understood the need for privacy. God knew I had my own secrets locked away tighter than Fort Knox. But lately something felt different about Emerson's privacy. It felt less like professional discretion and more like, what, hiding? From the window I could see the Capitol building lit up against the night sky. During the day, I hung off that building, painting its details, maintaining its facade, making sure it looked perfect from the outside, no matter what was happening within its walls. The metaphor wasn't lost on me. My phone buzzed. A text from Emerson. Running late. Don't wait up. Love you. It was 11:30 p.m. Angelo's closed at 10 o'clock. I stood there for a long time, looking at that message, feeling something shift in my chest. It wasn't suspicion exactly, more like awareness. That moment when you realize the painting you've been admiring might be a forgery, and suddenly you start seeing all the brushstrokes that don't quite match. But I pushed the feeling down, like I always did. Because the truth was, I had my own deceptions to protect, my own elaborate facade that I maintained every single day. Who was I to demand complete honesty when I woke up every morning and pretended to be someone I wasn't? The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so damn sad. I heard Emerson's car pull into the driveway at 1:47 a.m., heard her try to quietly open the door, slip off her heels in the foyer, pad up the stairs. She slipped into bed beside me, smelling like wine and something else cologne that wasn't mine. Sorry, she whispered, thinking I was asleep. The Washingtons were chatty. I kept my breathing steady, played the part of the sleeping husband. But my mind was racing, putting together pieces I didn't want to see. The late nights, the locked drawers, the new clothes hidden in closets, the way she'd been pushing about money lately, suggesting investments we couldn't afford. In the darkness, I made a decision. Tomorrow I'd have Madison quietly run a check on our finances, make sure everything was where it should be, just to be safe, just to be sure. Trust, but verify, like Harold always said. The capital clause sat in my office, safe downtown, 30 pages of legal language that I'd never thought I'd need to read again. It was supposed to be insurance I'd never have to claim, a test I'd never have to grade, but lying there in the dark, listening to my wife's breathing slowly steady into sleep, I had the sinking feeling that test results were coming whether I wanted them or not. The perfect picture of the Thompson family was still intact, but I was beginning to see the cracks in the paint. And once you start seeing those cracks, you can't stop looking for them. They spread like spider webs, thin at first, almost invisible. But they grow. They always grow. And eventually the whole facade comes crashing down. I should have known then what was coming. Should have trusted my instincts. But I was still that man who believed love could overcome anything, that the family we'd built was stronger than whatever forces were working against it. I was still painting the Capitol, focused on making the outside beautiful, not realizing that the real damage was happening on the inside, in places I couldn't see from my scaffold. But I'd learn. Oh God, would I learn. The sun would rise in a few hours, and it would be Sunday. Church in the morning, where Emerson would sit beside me in our usual pew, her hand in mine, singing hymns about truth and faithfulness. Then dinner with Harrison and Allison, where we'd all pretend we were exactly who we appeared to be, a normal family living normal lives in Albany, New York. The last normal Sunday we'd ever have, though I didn't know it then. The shell game was already in motion. The question was, who was playing whom? And when the shells finally stopped moving, what would be left underneath? I closed my eyes and pulled Emerson closer, holding on to the illusion for just a little while longer. Because sometimes the lie we tell ourselves is the only thing keeping us from falling apart. And I wasn't ready to fall. Not yet. Chapter 2. The first real crack appeared on a Tuesday in March 2009, though I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. Funny how memory works. You look back and all the warning signs seem lit up in neon, but in the moment, they were just flickering bulbs you figured would fix themselves. I was sitting at our kitchen table, having my usual breakfast of coffee and toast, when Emerson breezed through like a woman on a mission. "Client emergency," she said, grabbing her travel mug and not quite meeting my eyes. "The Hendersons are panicking about their portfolio with all this market volatility." "It's 7 in the morning," I pointed out, checking the clock above the stove. "Early bird gets the worm, right?" She kissed my cheek, quick and distracted. "Oh, and I'll be late tonight. Another client wants to meet after work." "Another dinner meeting?" She paused at the door, hand on the knob. "Why do you say it like that?" "Like what? Like you're suspicious or something?" I held up my hands in surrender. "Just making conversation, Em. You've had a lot of evening meetings lately, that's all." Her smile was bright, maybe too bright. "Tax season's coming up. Everyone's scrambling to get their finances in order. You know how it is." I didn't, actually. In my supposed world of painting government buildings, tax season meant a simple W-2 and a standard deduction. But I nodded anyway, playing my part. "Drive safe," I said. "Always do." But here's the thing: the Hendersons had moved to Florida 6 months ago. I knew because Emerson had complained about losing them as clients, how it was such a blow to her practice. She'd even cried about it one night, worried about making her quarterly numbers. I sat there, staring at my cold toast, trying to figure out why my wife had just lied to me about something so small, so seemingly insignificant. Maybe she'd mixed up names. Maybe she meant the Hendricksons, not the Hendersons. Easy mistake. Except Emerson never made mistakes with client names. She had this incredible memory for details, could remember someone's kids' names, their dog's birthday, their favorite wine. It's what made her so good at her job. "Dad, you're doing that thing again," Addison said, appearing in the kitchen in her school uniform. "What thing?" "That thing where you stare into space like you're solving world hunger or something." I forced a laugh. "Just thinking about work. Got a tricky section of trim to paint today." She poured herself orange juice, moving around the kitchen with the casual grace of someone who belonged there. Mom seemed stressed. "Tax season," I repeated Emerson's excuse. "Yeah, I guess." But Addison didn't look convinced. She had this way of seeing through bullshit that was both admirable and slightly terrifying in a 14-year-old. "She's been stressed a lot lately." "What makes you say that?" Addison shrugged, but I could tell she was choosing her words carefully. "She's just different. On her phone more. Closes her laptop when I walk into the room. And last week, when I borrowed her car to grab my soccer bag, there was this parking receipt from downtown Albany at like midnight on a Wednesday. My coffee suddenly tasted like ash. Maybe she was meeting a client. At midnight? On a Wednesday? Addison. "I'm not saying anything," she said quickly. "I'm just observing. That's all." She grabbed a granola bar and headed for the door. "Mackenzie's still in bed, by the way. You might want to wake her up unless you want to deal with the tornado version of your youngest daughter." After she left, I sat in my quiet kitchen, listening to the tick of the clock and the hum of the refrigerator. Normal sounds of a normal morning in a normal house, except nothing felt normal anymore. I went upstairs to wake Mackenzie, finding her buried under approximately 17 stuffed animals and 3 blankets. She'd always been a burrower, even as a baby. "Rise and shine, kiddo." "5 more minutes," came the muffled response. "That's what you said 5 minutes ago." "No, that was past me. Present me needs 5 more minutes." Despite everything, I smiled. Can't argue with that logic. I sat on the edge of her bed, looking around her room. Posters of bands I didn't recognize, books scattered everywhere, soccer trophies mixed with participation ribbons from that brief ballet phase. This was real. This was worth protecting. "Dad?" Mackenzie's head emerged from her blanket fort. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart. Why?" "You have your worried face on." "I have a worried face?" "Yeah, your eyebrows do this thing." She scrunched her eyebrows together in an exaggerated imitation. "You've been doing it a lot lately." out of the mouths of babes. That evening, Emerson came home at 9:47 p.m. I knew the exact time because I'd been watching the clock, waiting. She looked tired but somehow energized, like she'd been running on adrenaline. "How were the Hendersons?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She paused for just a fraction of a second, so brief I might have imagined it. "Oh, worried about their municipal bonds. I told them to stay the course." Smart advice. "That's why they pay me the big bucks." She laughed, but it sounded forced. "I'm going to grab a shower. Long day. There's leftover Chinese in the fridge if you're hungry." "I ate with the clients," she said, already heading upstairs. But when I took out the trash later, I found a receipt in her car from a deli downtown. Sandwich and coffee, time-stamped 6:23 p.m. Not exactly a client dinner. The cracks were spreading. Over the next few weeks, they multiplied like fault lines before an earthquake. Little things that shouldn't have mattered, but did. Emerson started taking calls in the garage, claiming she needed quiet to focus. She changed her phone password I only knew because Mackenzie tried to use it to play a game and couldn't get in. She bought new clothes but kept them in the trunk of her car, bringing them in one at a time like she thought I wouldn't notice. And then there was the locked drawer. I discovered it by accident on a Saturday afternoon in April. Emerson was at a conference in Saratoga. She'd been attending a lot of conferences lately, and I was looking for stamps in her office. We kept them in the top drawer of her desk, had for years, except the drawer wouldn't open. I stood there staring at that little brass lock like it was a personal insult. We didn't lock things in our house. We barely locked our front door half the time. But here was this lock, small and brass and somehow enormous in its implications. "What are you doing?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. Addison stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Looking for stamps," I said, trying to sound normal. "Top drawer's locked." "I noticed." She walked over, studied the lock with the intensity of someone who'd watched too many crime shows. "That's new, like really new. The brass isn't even tarnished yet." "Maybe Mom needed to secure client files. Privacy laws and all that." "Maybe," Addison said, but her tone suggested she wasn't buying it any more than I was. Or maybe she's hiding something. "Addison, I'm just saying what you're thinking. You don't know what I'm thinking." She gave me a look that was pure teenager equal parts exasperation and pity. "Dad, you're not that complicated. You're worried about Mom. You think she's lying about something, and you're probably right. What makes you say that?" She pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, then showed me a photo. It was Emerson's car parked outside a building I didn't recognize, taken from across the street. "When did you take this?" "Last Wednesday, when Mom said she was at her book club." "Maybe book club changed venues." "Dad." Her voice was gentle but firm. "Book club meets at Mrs. Patterson's house. Has for 3 years. This is an apartment building on Lark Street. Lark Street, the trendy part of downtown Albany, all converted warehouses and young professionals. Not exactly book club territory." "Why were you there?" "Hannah's older sister lives nearby. We were walking to get ice cream and I saw Mom's car." She took her phone back, shoved it in her pocket. "Look, I'm not trying to cause problems, but something's going on, and pretending it's not isn't going to make it go away. The wisdom of teenagers. Sometimes it's brutal in its simplicity. That night, I lay in our bed, though it felt less and less like hours lately, and stared at the ceiling. Emerson was beside me, scrolling through her phone with the brightness turned down. Every few minutes, she'd smile at something on the screen, a private smile meant for no one. "What's funny?" I asked. "Oh, just a meme from Sarah." Sarah was her college roommate who lived in Seattle. They exchanged maybe 3 texts a year, usually on birthdays. "Can I see?" She locked her phone, set it on the nightstand face down. "It's one of those things that's only funny if you were there. College humor." "Right." We lay there in silence, 2 people sharing a bed, but nothing else. When had we become strangers? When had the woman I'd married become someone I didn't recognize? "Jensen?" Her voice was soft in the darkness. "Yeah? Do you ever think about what life would be like if we had more money?" Here it was again, the money conversation. It had been coming up more and more lately, like a song on repeat. "We have enough," I said, giving my standard answer. "But don't you want more? For the girls? For us? What would more get us that we don't already have?" She sighed, rolled over to face me. In the dim light from the street lamp outside, I could see her eyes, intense and searching. "Security," she said. "Real security. Not living paycheck to paycheck, not wondering if we can afford college, not driving cars that are one breakdown away from the junkyard." "Is that really what you want? Or is it what you think you should want?" "What's that supposed to mean?" "I mean, we're happy, aren't we? The girls are thriving, we have a nice house, good friends. Why isn't that enough?" She was quiet for so long I thought she'd fallen asleep. Then, barely a whisper, "Maybe it's not about enough. Maybe it's about deserve. What do we deserve that we don't have?" But she'd already rolled away from me, pulling the blanket up to her chin. "Forget it, I'm tired." I wanted to push, to demand answers to questions I was afraid to ask. But I didn't, because the truth was, I was a coward hiding behind my own lies while suspecting my wife of hers. The next morning was Sunday, which meant church. We sat in our usual pew, the Thompson family in their Sunday best. Emerson sang the hymns with her clear, beautiful voice. Mackenzie doodled on the bulletin. Addison watched everything with those sharp eyes of hers. Pastor Williams preached about truth and consequences, about how lies were like termites, eating away at the foundation of our lives until the whole structure collapsed. I felt like he was speaking directly to me, calling out my hypocrisy for everyone to see. But when I glanced at Emerson, she was texting under her hymnal, fingers flying across the screen with practiced stealth. After church, we went to our usual lunch spot, a little diner called Murphy's that had been serving the same menu since 1963. Harrison and Allison met us there, a tradition we'd started years ago. "You look tired, Em," Allison said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Everything okay?" "Just work stuff," Emerson said. "You know how it is." "Actually, I don't," Allison laughed. "Government work is pretty predictable. No evening meetings, no weekend conferences." "Must be nice," Emerson said, and there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. "Some of us have to hustle for every dollar." Harrison and Allison exchanged a glance. In their world, our supposed world, we were all in the same boat financially. The comment didn't make sense. "Well, sure," Harrison said slowly. "We all work hard. That's what family does, right? We support each other." "Right," Emerson said, her smile bright and false. "Family." The rest of lunch was awkward, conversation stilted. Mackenzie filled the silence with chatter about school, but even she seemed to sense the tension. When we finally left, Allison pulled me aside. "Is everything okay with Emerson? Why do you ask?" "She seems different. Stressed, maybe, or—" She hesitated. "Look, this is none of my business, but Harrison thought he saw her last week at the Capitol building, arguing with some man in a suit. Really going at it, he said. But when he called out to her, she practically ran away. The Capitol building, where I worked, where Emerson had no reason to be. Must have been someone else, I said. That's what Harrison figured, but—" She touched my arm gently. "Jensen, if something's wrong, you can talk to us. We're family." Family. There was that word again. But what did it mean when half of what I presented as truth was a lie? What did it mean when the person you trusted most in the world had locked drawers and secret meetings and phone calls in the garage? That night, after everyone was asleep, I stood in front of Emerson's office door. The house was quiet except for the grandfather clock in the hallway, ticking away the seconds of my indecision. I could pick the lock. It would be easy enough. YouTube had tutorials for everything these days. I could find out what she was hiding, put my suspicions to rest one way or another. But then I'd be the husband who broke into his wife's private space. I'd be the one who crossed that line from suspicious to invasive. And once you cross that line, can you ever go back? I went back to bed, decision unmade, questions unanswered. The next few weeks brought more cracks, more fissures in our carefully constructed life. Emerson's evening meetings became more frequent. Her phone was permanently attached to her hand. She started using cash for everything, claiming it helped her budget better, but I knew it was really to avoid credit card trails. And then there was the day I came home early with the flu. I'd been painting the Capitol's east entrance when the nausea hit. My foreman, who thought he was my boss, sent me home, told me not to come back until I was better. "Can't have you puking on the Capitol steps," he'd laughed. "Bad for the state's image." So I'd driven home at 2 p.m. on a Thursday, expecting to find an empty house. Instead, I found Emerson's car in the driveway and voices coming from inside. I stood on my own front porch, hand on the doorknob, listening to my wife laugh at something someone said. A male someone with a deep voice I didn't recognize. I should have walked in. Should have announced myself like a normal husband coming home to his normal house. But something made me wait, made me listen. "Have to be more careful," the man was saying. "He's not stupid." "He's not suspicious either," Emerson replied. "Trust me, Jensen sees what he wants to see." Still, the stakes are too high to get sloppy now. I'm not being sloppy. Everything's going according to plan. "Your plan or mine?" She laughed again, but it wasn't the laugh I knew. This one was harder, calculated. "Does it matter as long as we both get what we want?" I backed away from the door, made it to my truck before the nausea, real now, not fluoridated, overwhelmed me. I drove to a gas station 3 blocks away and threw up in their bathroom, then sat in my truck for an hour, trying to make sense of what I'd heard. When I finally went home, Emerson was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to herself like nothing had happened. "You're home early," she said, kissing my cheek. "Everything okay?" "Flu," I managed. "Foreman sent me home." "Oh no, let me make you some soup. You should go lie down." She fussed over me, brought me tea and crackers, rubbed my back when another wave of nausea hit. The perfect wife, caring for her sick husband. But all I could hear was her voice saying, "Jensen sees what he wants to see." What did I want to see? A happy marriage, a faithful wife, a normal life. Or was I seeing exactly what she wanted me to see, a carefully constructed facade, as fake as the smile she wore when she told me about her client meetings? That night, lying in bed pretending to sleep, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I'd call Madison Johnson. I'd have her run that financial check I'd been putting off. Just to be safe. Just to be sure. Because the cracks weren't just spreading anymore. They were getting wider, deeper. And I was starting to see through to something underneath, something I didn't recognize and definitely didn't like. The shell game was in motion. The question now was whether I was a player or just another mark. Time would tell. But first, I had to stop seeing what I wanted to see and start seeing what was really there, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew. Chapter 3. The knock came at 7:43 on a Thursday morning in March 2010. Not a polite knock, not a friendly neighbor checking in. This was urgent, demanding, the kind of knock that makes your coffee cup freeze halfway to your lips. I opened the door to find Harrison standing there, his face the color of old newspaper. He was holding an envelope like it might explode, his hands actually shaking. "We need to talk," he said. "Now." "Harrison? What's wrong? Is Allison okay?" "Allison's fine, it's—" He pushed past me into the house, something he'd never done in 8 years of being family. "Is Emerson here?" "She left for work 20 minutes ago." "Good. Good." He was pacing now, that envelope clutched against his chest. "Jensen, what the hell is Albany Consulting, LLC?" The name meant nothing to me. "I have no idea. Why?" He thrust the envelope at me. Inside was an official IRS notice, the kind with lots of bold text and threatening language. Harrison Brown, it stated, owed $800,000 in back taxes as a managing partner of Albany Consulting, LLC. $800,000, Harrison said, his voice cracking. "Jensen, I don't have $800, let alone $800,000, and I've never heard of this company." I scanned the document, my blood gradually turning to ice. Because there, listed as the other managing partner and registered agent, was my name, Jensen Thompson. "This has to be a mistake," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. That's what I thought. So I called the IRS this morning. They said Albany Consulting has been operating for 2 years. 2 years, Jensen. They have tax returns with our signatures on them. That's impossible. Look at this. He pulled out another paper, a photocopy of what appeared to be a tax form. There was my signature at the bottom, except I'd never signed this. I'd never seen this. But it looked exactly like my signature. Every loop, every line. Perfect. Someone forged this, I said. Someone with access to your signature. Someone who knows you well enough to copy it perfectly. Harrison's eyes were wild now, desperate. Jensen, who would do this? Who would have access to... He stopped mid-sentence, the color draining from his face even more, if that was possible. We were both thinking the same thing, arriving at the same impossible conclusion. No, I said. She wouldn't. Wouldn't she? Harrison collapsed into my kitchen chair. Think about it. She's a financial advisor. She has access to all our information. She's prepared taxes for both of us. She has our signatures on dozens of documents. Harrison, you're talking about my wife, your sister-in-law. I'm talking about the only person who could have done this. The front door opened, and we both jumped. But it was just Addison, who'd forgotten her chemistry textbook. She took one look at our faces and stopped. What's wrong? Nothing, sweetheart. Just some paperwork confusion. She looked at the IRS envelope on the table, then at Harrison's devastated expression. That doesn't look like nothing. Addison, is this about Mom? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Harrison and I exchanged glances. Why would you ask that? I said carefully. She set down her backpack, pulled out a chair, and sat down with the gravity of someone much older than 15. Because I know things. Things I haven't told you because I kept hoping I was wrong. What kind of things? She pulled out her phone, opened her photos, and showed me a picture. It was Emerson's car parked outside an office building downtown. This is from 3 weeks ago when Mom said she was at her book club. But I looked up this address. It's a business registered to someone named Lawson Wilson. Lawson Wilson. The name was vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. There's more, Addison said. She swiped to another photo. This one was grainier, taken from a distance. It showed Emerson in a parking garage, handing something to a man in a dark suit. I followed her one day. I know I shouldn't have, but I was worried. This man, he's been showing up a lot. They meet in weird places, parking garages, empty lots, once at a rest stop on I-87. How long has this been going on? Months. Maybe longer. I only started noticing in December. Harrison leaned forward. Addison, this is important. Have you ever heard your mom mention Albany Consulting? She shook her head. But there's something else. Mom has a folder on her laptop. It's password protected and encrypted. I tried to open it once when she left her computer logged in, but I couldn't get past the encryption. You tried to hack into your mother's computer? She gave me a look that said, Really, Dad? That's what you're focusing on? The folder is called AC Projects. AC could stand for Albany Consulting. I stood up. Decision made. Addison, go to school. Harrison, come with me. Where are we going? To get answers. But Addison didn't move. Dad, I want to help. This isn't... I'm already involved. I've been watching Mom lie to you for months. I've kept quiet because I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe there was an explanation. But there's not, is there? She's done something bad. The pain in my daughter's voice nearly broke me. No kid should have to suspect their parent of crimes. No teenager should have to play detective in their own family. After school, I said finally. We'll talk after school. She nodded, grabbed her backpack, and headed for the door. But she stopped, turned back. Dad, whatever Mom did, it's not your fault. After she left, Harrison and I sat in heavy silence for a moment. She's a smart kid, he said finally. Too smart for her own good sometimes. What are we going to do? I looked at the forged signatures, at the IRS notice that could destroy Harrison's life, at the photos on Addison's phone that suggested a betrayal deeper than just money. First, we're going to that office to look through Emerson's files. She locks her drawers. Then we'll unlock them. Harrison stared at me. You're talking about breaking into your wife's desk. I'm talking about protecting my family, and that includes you and Allison. It took us 20 minutes to figure out how to pick the lock on Emerson's desk drawer. YouTube, as always, had the answers. The lock was newer than I'd thought, installed maybe 6 months ago. Why would she need a lock that recent unless she was hiding something that recent? Inside the drawer was exactly what we feared and more. Articles of incorporation for Albany Consulting LLC, dated 2 years ago. Bank statements showing hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing in and out. Wire transfer receipts to offshore accounts. And there, in a separate folder, copies of tax returns with our forged signatures. But the worst part was the sticky note attached to one of the bank statements. In Emerson's handwriting, L next transfer scheduled for 3/15. J&H papers ready for submission. E.L. had to be Lawson. J&H were obviously Jensen and Harrison. And E was my wife, orchestrating our destruction with the casual efficiency of someone making a grocery list. Jesus Christ, Harrison whispered. She's been using us as a front for money laundering. I picked up one of the bank statements, studying the deposits. They were large, regular, and came from companies with generic names. Shell companies, probably. The money would come in, stay for a few days, then get transferred out to other accounts. She's washing money for someone, I said. Probably this Lawson Wilson. Who the hell is Lawson Wilson? I pulled out my phone, did a quick search. The results made my stomach drop. He's connected to organized crime in New York, suspected of racketeering, drug trafficking, money laundering, never convicted because witnesses have a habit of disappearing or changing their stories. Harrison put his head in his hands. We're dead. If the IRS doesn't destroy us, this Lawson guy will... No, I said, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. We're not dead. We're going to fix this. How? How do you fix your wife setting you up for federal crimes? I looked at the evidence spread across the desk. My wife, the woman I'd loved for 16 years, the mother of my children, had betrayed us all. She'd used our names, our trust, our family bonds as tools in whatever scheme she was running with a criminal. We gather evidence, I said. We document everything, and then we go to the authorities before she can finish whatever she's planning. What if she denies it? What if she says we were involved? Then we prove otherwise. I started taking photos of every document with my phone. Harrison, I need you to do something for me. What? I need you to trust me. Really trust me. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane. He laughed bitterly. More insane than your wife framing us for money laundering? Yeah, actually. I took a breath. I'm not really a painter. I own Empire State Construction. I'm worth about $2.4 billion that Emerson doesn't know about. Harrison stared at me for so long I thought he might have had a stroke. What? He finally managed. I inherited the company 3 years ago. I kept it secret because I wanted to make sure Emerson loved me for me, not for money. You're serious. Completely. You're a billionaire. Yes. And you let me and Allison struggle with money for years. I'm sorry about that. I truly am. But I had to maintain the fiction, had to lie to everyone. His voice was flat, emotionless. Yes. He was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then, does this help us somehow? It means I have resources Emerson doesn't know about. Legal resources, investigative resources, and there's something else, something called the Capital Clause. I explained about the legal framework I'd put in place, how anyone using my name or companies for illegal purposes would forfeit everything and face prosecution. So Emerson doesn't know she's already triggered her own downfall, Harrison said slowly. Exactly. That's actually brilliant. Harold Morrison was paranoid about protecting his legacy. Turns out he was right to be. We spent the next 2 hours documenting everything in that drawer. Every receipt, every statement, every forged document. By the time we were done, we had enough evidence to bury Emerson and probably Lawson Wilson, too. What now? Harrison asked. Now we... The front door opened. We both froze. Jensen, you home? Emerson's voice called out. I quickly closed the drawer, not bothering to lock it. Harrison shoved the original IRS notice in his jacket. In here, I called back, trying to keep my voice normal. She appeared in the doorway, looking perfect as always. Blonde hair pulled back, Designer suit that she'd probably bought with laundered money. Smile that I now knew meant nothing. Harrison! What a nice surprise. How's Allison? She's fine, Harrison said stiffly. What brings you by? Harrison and I exchanged glances. Just wanted to talk to Jensen about some family stuff, he said. Oh. She looked between us and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Suspicion? Worry? What kind of family stuff? Guy stuff, I said, forcing a smile. You know how it is. She studied us for a moment longer, then shrugged. Well, don't let me interrupt. I just came home to grab some files I forgot. She moved toward her desk, then stopped. The drawer was closed but not locked. She'd notice. She'd know. Actually, I said quickly, Harrison was just leaving. We're done talking. Yeah, Harrison said, catching on. I should get back to work. Emerson's hand was on the drawer handle. Just give me 1 second. I said, stepping closer to her. I was thinking maybe we could grab lunch. It's been a while since we did that. She looked at me surprised. Lunch? Now? Why not? Harrison's leaving. You're here. I can take a long break. When's the last time we went to that Italian place you like? For a moment, I thought she'd insist on checking the drawer. But then she smiled that fake smile I was starting to recognize. That sounds nice, she said. Let me just grab my purse. She left the room. Harrison grabbed my arm. She's going to know, he whispered. Then we don't have much time, I whispered back. Go home. Protect those documents. I'll handle Emerson. He nodded and left quickly. I heard Emerson in the kitchen, probably checking her phone, probably texting Lawson. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick text to Madison Johnson. Need to meet. Urgent. Bring your best forensic accountant. Then I plastered on a smile and went to have lunch with my criminal wife. The Italian place was busy, which was good. Harder to have serious conversations in a crowded restaurant. Emerson ordered her usual Caesar salad, dressing on the side. I ordered pasta I wouldn't taste. This is nice, she said, but her eyes kept darting to her phone. We should do it more often. Definitely. She was distracted, not really present. So what were you and Harrison really talking about? I told you. Guy stuff. Jensen. Her voice had an edge now. We don't have secrets in this marriage. The irony of that statement almost made me laugh. Almost. He's worried about money, I said, which was true enough. The IRS made some kind of error, sent him a scary notice. He wanted my advice. Her face went very still. What kind of notice? Something about a company he's never heard of. Albany something. Probably just a mix-up. She took a sip of water and I noticed her hand was trembling slightly. That does sound like a mix-up. Did he call them? He's planning to. He should let me help. I deal with the IRS all the time for clients. I'll tell him. We ate in relative silence after that. Emerson pushed her salad around, checking her phone every few minutes. I watched her and wondered how I'd missed it for so long. The nervous energy, the distraction, the barely concealed anxiety. This wasn't a woman having an affair. This was a woman running a criminal enterprise and starting to feel the walls close in. I have to go, she said suddenly. Client emergency. But we just got here. I know, I'm sorry. She was already standing, gathering her things. Rain check? Sure. She kissed my cheek, quick and perfunctory, and practically ran out of the restaurant. I sat there for a moment, then called Madison Johnson. How soon can you meet? I asked. I can clear my afternoon. Jensen, what's going on? My wife is a criminal and I need to stop her before she destroys what's left of my family. There was a pause. I'll see you in an hour. I drove to Madison's office on autopilot, my mind racing through 16 years of marriage, looking for signs I'd missed. Had she always been capable of this? Or had something changed her? When did the woman I loved become someone who could forge documents and launder money and lie to my face every single day? Madison's office was in a historic building downtown, all dark wood and leather chairs and the smell of old books. It felt safe, solid, like the truth had weight here. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. The late nights, the locked drawers, Harrison's IRS notice, The forged signatures, Albany Consulting, Lawson Wilson, all of it. Madison took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once showing surprise despite the magnitude of what I was telling her. "The capital clause will protect your assets," she said when I was done. "That's the good news. The bad news is that Emerson has committed serious federal crimes using your identity. You need to go to the authorities immediately." "What about my kids?" "They're victims too. The court will see that." "And Emerson?" Madison's expression was grim. "If what you're telling me is true, and the evidence suggests it is, she's looking at significant prison time. 20 years, maybe more, depending on the money laundering charges. 20 years. My daughters would be adults before their mother got out of prison. There has to be another way." "Jensen." Madison's voice was gentle but firm. "Your wife chose this path. She involved you and Harrison without your knowledge or consent. She's been lying to you for years. This isn't a mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. This is systematic criminal behavior." I knew she was right, but knowing and accepting are two different things. "What do I do now?" "We contact the FBI. Financial crimes of this magnitude, especially with organized crime connections, are their jurisdiction. We turn over all the evidence, cooperate fully, and hope they can build a case quickly." "How quickly?" "That depends on how much evidence you can gather. The more you have, the faster they can move." I thought about Addison, already suspicious, already gathering evidence of her own. My 15-year-old daughter, playing detective because her mother had forced her into that role. "I'll get you everything," I said. "Jensen, I have to ask, is there any chance Emerson knows about your real financial situation?" "No, I've been very careful." "Then we have an advantage. She doesn't know you have the resources to fight this properly." "Some advantage. My wife is a criminal who's been using me as a front for money laundering." "But you're not a victim," Madison said firmly. "You're a man protecting his family. There's a difference." I left Madison's office with a plan and a purpose. Gather evidence, protect the kids, stop Emerson before she could do more damage. Simple in concept, devastating in execution. When I got home, Addison was waiting for me. "Mom knows," she said without preamble. "She called me, asked if you and Uncle Harrison had been in her office. I told her I didn't know, but she didn't believe me." "Where is she now?" "I don't know. But Dad, she sounded scared. Really scared." Good, I thought, then immediately felt guilty for thinking it. "Addison, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to access that encrypted folder on your mom's computer. Can you do that?" She bit her lip. "Maybe. I've been researching encryption breaking. It's not easy, but if Mom used a standard program. Try, but be careful. And Addison, whatever you find, whatever you see, remember that I love you and Mackenzie more than anything in this world." "Dad, you're scaring me." I pulled her into a hug. "I'm scared too. But we're going to get through this. As a family." She hugged me back, and for a moment I let myself feel the full weight of what was happening. My marriage was over. My wife was a criminal. My children were about to lose their mother, but we were still a family. Broken, betrayed, but not beaten. The shell game was coming to an end. Time to show everyone what was really under those shells. Chapter 4. Madison Johnson's conference room became our war room. It was a Thursday evening, 2 days after Harrison's IRS bombshell, and we'd assembled our small army of truth seekers. Me, Harrison, Addison, and Madison, who'd brought her best forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia Chen. "I cracked it," Addison announced, sliding her laptop onto the mahogany table. She looked exhausted but triumphant, like she'd run a marathon and won. "Mom's encrypted folder. I got in." "How?" Patricia asked, clearly impressed. "She used her usual password pattern but substituted numbers for letters. Predictable, really. She always thinks she's being clever, but she's actually just consistent." It hurt to hear my 15-year-old daughter speak so clinically about her mother's habits. But the hurt was quickly replaced by horror as she opened the folder. Spreadsheets filled the screen, dozens of them, all meticulously organized, all documenting the money flowing through Albany Consulting. But it was the folder labeled Personal that made my blood run cold. "Click on that," I said, though I dreaded what we'd find. The first document was a love letter, not to me. "Lawson, last night was incredible. I can't believe we've been doing this dance for 2 years now." Jensen suspects nothing. He's too trusting, too focused on his simple little life to see what's right in front of him. By this time next year, we'll be in the Caymans with enough money to live like royalty. The girls will understand eventually. They'll thank me for showing them that a woman doesn't have to settle for a painter when she could have a king. All my love, E. The room was silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for a reaction, but I felt numb, hollowed out, like someone had scooped out my insides and left just the shell. "There's more," Addison said quietly. She clicked on another file. This one was worse. It was a detailed plan for what Emerson called the exit strategy. She planned to transfer one final massive sum, $3 million, from a capital project into an offshore account, then disappear with Lawson. The date for this transfer was next week. But the worst part was a line near the bottom. "Take M with us? I could stay with J, she's too much like him anyway." She was planning to take Mackenzie. To split up our daughters like they were possessions to be divided. "That bitch," Harrison said, then immediately looked at Addison. "Sorry." "Don't apologize," Addison said, her voice hard. "She is." Madison had been taking notes throughout. Now she looked up. "This is evidence of conspiracy, fraud, adultery, and potential kidnapping. We need to get this to the FBI immediately." "There's something else," Patricia said, studying one of the spreadsheets. "These amounts, these transfer patterns, I've seen this before. Lawson Wilson isn't just some small-time criminal. He's connected to the Torino family." The Torino family. Even I knew that name. They controlled organized crime from Albany to Buffalo, though they'd never been officially connected to anything. "My wife is in bed with the mob," I said, the words sounding absurd even as I said them, literally and figuratively. "Which means she's in deeper than she knows," Madison said. "People don't leave the Torino family's employ, not alive anyway." "What about the capital project she mentioned?" Harrison asked. "What's that about?" I knew exactly what it was about, though I'd never told anyone in this room except Madison. Empire State Construction had just won a $50 million contract to renovate the Capitol building's east wing. The first payment, $3 million, was due next week. "She must have found out somehow," I said, "about my company, about the contract." "But how?" Madison asked. "You've been so careful." I thought back over the past few months, looking for any slip, any moment when I might have revealed myself. Then it hit me. "The Home Office," I said. "I keep some Empire State papers in a locked filing cabinet in the basement. She broke into your locked cabinet while being mad at you for looking in her locked drawer." Harrison laughed bitterly. "The hypocrisy is stunning." "We need to move fast," Madison said. "If she's planning to run next week, she's not running anywhere." The voice came from the doorway. We all turned to see FBI Special Agent Anderson Garcia standing there, badge in hand. Behind him was IRS criminal investigator Wilson Martinez. "How did you?" Madison began. "Miss Chen called us an hour ago," Garcia said, nodding to Patricia. "She recognized the laundering patterns and thought we should be involved immediately." Patricia shrugged. "I have a duty to report federal crimes." "We've been investigating Lawson Wilson for 3 years," Agent Garcia continued. "This is the break we've been waiting for. Mr. Thompson, we need everything you have." "It's all here," I said, gesturing to the laptop and the boxes of documents we'd assembled. "And we need your cooperation, full cooperation. You have it." "Good. Because we're going to arrest your wife tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Addison said. "But what about Mackenzie? She doesn't know any of this." Garcia's expression softened slightly. "We'll do it discreetly. Away from your home, away from the younger child. But, Mr. Thompson, you need to prepare. This is going to be public. The press will be involved. Your family, we'll handle it," I said. "Just get her before she runs." The agents spent the next 2 hours copying documents, taking statements, building their case. Addison sat beside me the whole time, her hand in mine, anchor and comfort both. "I need to tell you something," she said quietly while the agents worked. I've known about Lawson for months. I saw them together, kissing, in a car outside that apartment building. Why didn't you tell me? Because I kept hoping I was wrong. Because I didn't want to be the reason our family fell apart. Tears were streaming down her face now. I'm sorry, Dad, I should have— No, I said firmly, pulling her close. None of this is your fault. You're a child. It wasn't your job to expose your mother's crimes. I don't feel like a child anymore. Neither did I. Agent Garcia approached us as they were finishing up. Mr. Thompson, there's something else you should know. We've been monitoring Lawson's communications. Your wife isn't his only partner. He has 3 other women in similar situations, all married to men whose identities he's using for his operations. You mean she's not even special to him? She's just another mark? It appears so, yes. I laughed, actually laughed. The woman who'd thrown away our marriage, our family, our life together, she was just another sucker in Lawson's stable of desperate housewives. There's a certain poetic justice to that, Harrison said. Where will you arrest her? I asked Garcia. She has a meeting scheduled with Lawson tomorrow at noon. A parking garage on State Street. We'll take them both there. I want to be there. Mr. Thompson, not to interfere, just, I need to see it. I need to see her face when she realizes it's over. Garcia studied me for a moment, then nodded. Stay in your vehicle. Do not approach. Do not interfere. Understood. After the agents left, we sat in Madison's conference room, exhausted and overwhelmed. What are you going to tell Mackenzie? Harrison asked. The truth, I said. Age-appropriate version. But the truth. She deserves that much. And Emerson's parents? I'd forgotten about them. Sweet elderly couple living in a modest apartment in Troy, thinking their daughter was a successful financial advisor married to a humble painter. They were going to be devastated. I'll call them after the arrest, I said. They should hear it from me, not the news. Addison was studying the financial documents Patricia had left on the table. Dad, according to this, Mom stole almost $500,000 from your retirement account. I looked where she was pointing. Sure enough, there were withdrawals totaling $480,000 over the past year, all transferred to accounts controlled by Albany Consulting. She must have forged my signature on the withdrawal forms, I said. But that's your retirement. That's your future. I almost laughed again. My retirement account that Emerson knew about had maybe $50,000 in it originally. The $480,000 she'd stolen was money I'd added to make it look like I'd been saving aggressively. Meanwhile, my real retirement account, the one she didn't know about, had hundreds of millions. Money can be replaced, I said. Trust can't. Speaking of money, Madison said, the capital clause is now in full effect. Emerson has forfeited any claim to your assets, including the ones she doesn't know about. The divorce will be straightforward, at least financially. Divorce. The word hit me like a physical blow. I was going to be a divorced man. My daughters were going to be from a broken home. Dad? Addison said. You okay? Just thinking about you and Mackenzie. This is going to be hard on you both. We'll be okay, she said with a maturity that broke my heart. We have you. And Uncle Harrison and Aunt Allison, and each other. That's enough. When did you get so wise? When Mom forced me to grow up fast. That night I didn't go home. I couldn't face Emerson. Couldn't pretend everything was normal when I knew that in less than 24 hours, she'd be in handcuffs. Instead, I stayed at Harrison and Allison's house, sleeping on their couch, staring at their ceiling, wondering how I'd missed it all. But I hadn't missed it, had I? I'd seen the signs, felt the distance growing between us. I'd just chosen to ignore it, to believe that love would be enough to bridge whatever gap was forming. I'd been painting the Capitol, focused on the surface, while the foundation of my marriage crumbled beneath me. The next morning, I went home early before Emerson was awake. I packed bags for myself and the girls, gathered important documents, prepared for the explosion that was coming. Emerson came downstairs looking haggard, like she hadn't slept. Where were you last night? She asked. Harrison's. He needed help with that IRS thing. Oh. She poured coffee with shaking hands. Did he get it sorted out? It's being handled. She nodded, not really listening. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it, read the message, and her face went pale. I have to go, she said. Where? Client meeting. On a Saturday? Important client. She was already heading for the door. Emerson. She stopped, turned back. I love you, I said. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to say it one last time to the woman I'd married, not the stranger she'd become. Something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, regret, or just annoyance at the delay. Love you too, she said automatically, and then she was gone. I waited 5 minutes, then followed. The parking garage on State Street was one of those concrete monstrosities from the 1970s, all harsh angles and dark corners. I parked across the street where I could see the entrance and waited. Emerson's silver Lexus, financed with stolen money I now knew, entered at 11:47. A black BMW followed 5 minutes later. Lawson. I watched the FBI vehicles move into position, subtle but unmistakable once you knew what to look for. My phone buzzed. Agent Garcia. Stay put. At 12:03 it happened. FBI agents swarmed the garage. I heard shouting, though I couldn't make out words. Then silence. 5 minutes later they emerged. Emerson was in handcuffs, Garcia on one side, Martinez on the other. Even from across the street I could see she was crying, mascara running down her cheeks, her perfect facade finally, completely shattered. Behind her, 2 agents led Lawson Wilson, who looked annoyed but not surprised. He'd probably been arrested before, probably had lawyers on speed dial. But this time was different. This time they had evidence, documents, a clear trail of criminal activity. Emerson must have spotted my truck because she suddenly started struggling, screaming something. Garcia said something to her and she collapsed, all fight gone. They put her in one car, Lawson in another, and just like that it was over. 16 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built together gone in the time it takes to read Miranda rights. I drove home slowly, taking the long way, preparing what I'd say to Mackenzie. But when I got there, she was on the front porch with Addison, both of them crying. It's on the news, Addison said. Breaking news. Local financial advisor arrested for money laundering. I gathered them both in my arms, and we stood there on our front porch, holding each other while our neighbors peered through curtains, and our phones rang incessantly, and our world reorganized itself around this new, terrible truth. Is Mom really a criminal? Mackenzie asked, her voice small and broken. Yes, I said, because she deserved honesty. But she's still your mom, and I'm still your dad, and we're still a family. A broken family, she said. No, I said firmly, a hurt family, a betrayed family, but not broken, never broken. We went inside, closed the door on the world, and began the long, painful process of rebuilding our lives without the woman who'd tried to destroy them. The shell game was over. Emerson had lost. But looking at my daughter's faces, I couldn't feel victorious. All I felt was the weight of truth, heavy and inescapable, settling over us like a shroud. But at least it was truth. At least the lies were over. That had to count for something. It had to. Chapter 5. The arrest had been 3 days ago. 3 days since I watched my wife get handcuffed in a parking garage. 3 days since my daughter's world imploded. 3 days of picking up pieces I didn't even know were broken. Now I sat in Harrison and Allison's living room, watching my brother-in-law pour his 3rd scotch before noon. His hands were still shaking, had been, since he got the letter from his lawyer about the legal fees. $27,000, Harrison said, staring at the amber liquid in his glass like it held answers. That's what it cost to prove I wasn't a criminal. $27,000 to clear my name from something I never did. Allison sat beside him, their toddler Samuel playing with blocks at her feet, oblivious to the tension choking the room. My sister's eyes were red-rimmed. Whether from crying or lack of sleep, I couldn't tell. Probably both. We had to empty the college fund, Allison said quietly. Sam's college fund. Every penny. The weight of that statement hit me like a physical blow. My nephew's future, liquidated to pay for my wife's crimes. I'll pay you back, I said immediately. Every cent. With what? Harrison laughed bitterly. Your painter's salary? Come on, Jensen. We both know that's not... I have money, I interrupted. More than enough. They both stared at me. Even little Samuel looked up from his blocks. "The arrest wasn't the only secret in our family," I said, the words feeling strange after years of hiding. "I own Empire State Construction. Have for 3 years." The Scotch glass slipped from Harrison's hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. Samuel started crying at the sudden noise, and Allison scooped him up automatically, but her eyes never left my face. "You're joking," Harrison said. "I'm worth about $2.4 billion. The silence stretched until Samuel's whimpers filled it. Allison bounced him gently, her expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and finally, anger. "You let us struggle," she said slowly. "You watched us count pennies at restaurants, skip vacations, worry about Sam's future, and you had billions? I had my reasons." Reasons. Harrison stood up, glass crunching under his feet. "What possible reason could justify—" "I wanted to know if Emerson loved me for me, not for money," I said. "Turns out she didn't love me at all." That deflated him. He sank back into his chair, suddenly looking 10 years older. "But she knew?" Allison asked. "She found out about the money?" "I think so, recently. There's evidence she was trying to steal from a capital project payment. $3 million from my own company." "Jesus," Harrison muttered. "How deep does this go?" "Deep enough that I was still discovering new betrayals daily. Like the one I'd uncovered that morning, going through our bank statements with Madison Johnson's forensic accountant, Sarah Williams, thankfully not one of the forbidden names." "There's more," I said, pulling out my phone to show them the documents Sarah had found. "Emerson withdrew $500,000 from my retirement account over the past year." $500,000? Allison's voice cracked. "From your retirement? But that's your future. That's not the worst part." I swiped to the next document. "She used it to put her parents in Sunshine Luxury Retirement Village." Harrison leaned forward, squinting at the screen. "That place costs $15,000 a month. I know because we looked at it for Allison's mom before we realized we couldn't afford it." "Emerson told me her parents' house flooded," I continued, the bitterness creeping into my voice. "Said they needed help. We're basically homeless. I agreed to let her manage our retirement funds to help them. Never imagined she was setting them up in the most expensive retirement home in the state." "While we were draining Sam's college fund for legal fees," Harrison said quietly, "she was spending stolen money on luxury care for her parents. The irony wasn't lost on any of us, the family destroyer playing devoted daughter with money that wasn't hers." "Wait," Allison said suddenly. "How did Mackenzie find out about this?" I sighed, remembering my 13-year-old's face when she'd brought me that brochure. "She found paperwork in Emerson's car, a thank-you letter from Sunshine Luxury. She thought it was something nice her mom was doing for her grandparents. Had no idea it was bought with stolen money." "Poor kid," Allison murmured, still rocking Samuel. "Both your girls, actually. How are they handling everything?" "Addison's angry, determined. She wants to help expose everything, make sure justice is served. Mackenzie." I paused, thinking of my younger daughter's tears, her confusion, the way she still sometimes forgot, and asked when Mom was coming home. "Mackenzie's struggling. She doesn't understand how her mother could do this." "Do any of us?" Harrison asked. "No, we didn't. Which is why I decided to see for myself just how deep Emerson's deception went. I'm going to the retirement home," I announced. "Today. I need to see what $500,000 of betrayal looks like." "I'll come with you," Harrison said immediately. "No, this is something I need to do alone." The drive to Sunshine Luxury Retirement Village took 40 minutes, though it felt like hours. Every mile was a meditation on deception, each exit sign a reminder of roads not taken, truths not seen. The place was even more ostentatious than I'd imagined. The entrance looked like a 5-star hotel marble columns, a fountain featuring bronze herons, valets in crisp uniforms. This wasn't a retirement home. It was a resort for the elderly elite. I parked my beat-up truck between a Mercedes and a Bentley, feeling the irony of it all. Here I was, an actual billionaire driving a 2003 Honda Pilot, visiting the palace my wife built with stolen money. "Can I help you, sir?" The receptionist's smile was practiced, professional, slightly condescending as she took in my paint-stained jeans and worn flannel. "I'm here to tour the facility, considering it for my parents." "Of course. Let me get one of our lifestyle coordinators." The lifestyle coordinator turned out to be a woman named Margaret, all pearls and perfume and practiced enthusiasm. She led me through the grand tour, the Olympic-sized pool, the golf course, the five-star restaurant, the private movie theater. "Our residents enjoy a lifestyle of complete luxury," Margaret gushed. "We believe retirement should be the golden years in every sense." Golden indeed, paid for with fool's gold in my case. We passed through the main recreation area, and that's when I saw them. Robert and Linda Davis Emerson's parents holding court at a table overlooking the gardens. Robert wore a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than I allegedly made in a week. Linda's fingers glittered with new jewelry. They were laughing with another couple, champagne glasses raised in some toast. The picture of comfortable retirement, the American dream achieved. Except it was my dream they'd stolen. My future, they were toasting. "Ah, the Davises," Margaret said, following my gaze. "Lovely couple. Their daughter is so devoted she visits twice a week, always bringing gifts. She even donated $50,000 to our new library wing." 50,000, on top of the $500,000. The number hit like a punch to the gut. "Generous," I managed. "Oh yes, we named a reading room after her, the Emerson Thompson Reading Room. She insisted on using her married name, said her husband was the real hero, working so hard to support everyone. Such a humble man," she says. "A painter at the Capitol." The irony was so thick I could choke on it. Emerson had built this lie so completely that even her generosity was fraudulent, her praise a mockery. I watched Robert Davis lean back in his chair, satisfied and comfortable, while somewhere across town his son-in-law, the real one, Harrison, was calculating whether they could afford groceries this week after paying legal fees. "I've seen enough," I told Margaret. "But you haven't seen the spa facilities." I said I've seen enough. I left quickly, but not before taking photos. Evidence. Proof of where my money went, what my trust bought. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck for a long moment, engine running, heat blasting against the April chill. My phone buzzed. Addison. "Dad, you need to come home. Mackenzie found something." I drove back faster than I should have, my mind racing with possibilities. What else could there be? What other betrayals were waiting to be discovered? I found my daughters in the kitchen, Mackenzie's eyes puffy from crying, Addison's arm around her shoulders. On the table was a credit card statement. "It was in Mom's car," Mackenzie said quietly. "Under the seat. I was looking for my library book." I picked up the statement. It was for a credit card I didn't know existed, in Emerson's name alone. The balance was staggering $43,000, but it was the charges that made my blood run cold. Hotels, expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, all dated during her supposed client meetings and conferences. She was living a double life, Addison said, her voice hard. While telling us we couldn't afford soccer camp, she was spending thousands on herself. "And someone else," Mackenzie added quietly, pointing to a charge. "Look, 2 of everything, 2 dinners, 2 theater tickets, 2 spa packages." Lawson. She'd been financing their affair with credit cards I didn't know about, probably paid with money from accounts I hadn't found yet. "I'm sorry, Dad," Mackenzie whispered. "I'm sorry Mom did this to you." I pulled both my girls close, feeling their hurt mix with mine. "You have nothing to apologize for, nothing." "What are we going to do?" Addison asked. "We're going to document everything, every lie, every theft, every betrayal, and then we're going to make sure she faces consequences for all of it." "Is that revenge?" Mackenzie asked, the word sounding too heavy for a 13-year-old. "No, sweetheart. It's justice." But even as I said it, I knew the line between the two was getting blurrier by the day. That evening, after the girls had gone to bed, I sat in my office with boxes of documents surrounding me. Bank statements, credit card bills, receipts, photos, a paper trail of deception that seemed to grow with every passing hour. Madison Johnson had sent over more findings from her forensic accountant. Emerson had opened 6 different credit cards over the past 2 years, all maxed out, all hidden. She'd taken out a second mortgage on our house without my knowledge. Forgery was apparently her specialty. She'd even sold some of my tools, family heirlooms from my grandfather, and replaced them with cheap replicas, thinking I wouldn't notice. Each discovery was another cut, death by 1,000 paper cuts. The phone rang. Harrison. "You okay?" he asked without preamble. "No." "Yeah, me neither." A pause. "Allison wanted me to tell you something." "What?" "We don't blame you for any of it. Emerson did this, not you. I brought her into your lives, and she fooled all of us. For 16 years, she fooled all of us." Another pause. "But Jensen, when this is over, when she's paid for what she's done, we're going to have a talk about the lying, the billions, all of it." "Fair enough. And you're paying back every cent of our legal fees. Already planned on it. With interest." "Harrison, I'm kidding, mostly." His voice softened. "We're family, Jensen. Real family. That means something." After he hung up, I sat in the darkness of my office, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, thinking about what family really meant. Emerson had perverted the concept, used it as a weapon, a tool for manipulation. But Harrison was right. Real family meant something. It meant Addison trying to protect her sister while dealing with her own pain. It meant Allison and Harrison opening their home to us when we needed space from the memories. It meant Mackenzie still calling me Dad with love, even though her world had shattered. The Capital Clause document sat in my safe, waiting. The legal framework that would strip Emerson of everything, ensure she couldn't profit from her crimes. It was all there, ready to deploy. But first, I needed to know everything, every scheme, every lie, every betrayal, not for revenge, or not just for revenge, but for closure, for my daughters, for the family that remained. Tomorrow I would meet with Agent Garcia and Investigator Martinez. Tomorrow, we would plan the next phase. Tomorrow, the real reckoning would begin. Tonight, though, I sat with the evidence of my wife's crimes and tried to understand how love had turned to such spectacular betrayal. The trust was broken. The marriage was over. But from the ashes of what Emerson had burned, we would build something new. Something honest, even if it killed me to do it. Chapter 6. Madison Johnson's law office had become my second home. It was Thursday morning, a week after the arrest, and I sat across from her mahogany desk while she reviewed the mountain of evidence we'd compiled. Her expression grew grimmer with each document. "The Capital Clause is ironclad," she said finally, setting down the papers. "Emerson has no claim to any of your assets. But Jensen, there's something else we need to discuss." "What?" "The FBI called. Agent Garcia wants to meet with you. Today." My stomach tightened. "About what?" "Lawson Wilson. They think Emerson might know more about his operations than she's letting on. They want to make a deal with her." "A deal?" The word tasted bitter. "After everything she's done?" "If she cooperates, provides information about Lawson's network, they might reduce her charges, significantly." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "She destroyed my family, stole from my retirement, framed Harrison." "I know." Madison's voice was calm, professional. "But the FBI cares more about taking down a major crime syndicate than punishing a financial advisor who got in over her head." She wasn't in over her head. She knew exactly what she was doing. "I agree, which is why we need to be strategic." She pulled out a legal pad, began writing. "We document everything, create such an overwhelming case that even with a deal, she faces serious consequences. And we use the Capital Clause to ensure she doesn't profit from any of this." "How?" "Leave that to me. Right now, you need to meet with Garcia, see what they're planning." The FBI field office was a gray building that looked like it was designed to be forgotten. Inside, Agent Anderson Garcia waited in a conference room that smelled of burnt coffee and frustration. "Mr. Thompson," he said, gesturing to a chair. "Thank you for coming. Madison said you want to make a deal with my wife." Garcia's expression didn't change. "Your wife has information we need. Lawson Wilson is connected to operations spanning 3 states. Drug trafficking, money laundering, extortion. Your wife was his financial architect for the Northeastern Territory." "Financial architect?" I laughed bitterly. "Is that what we're calling it?" She's facing 30 years minimum without cooperation. With it, possibly 10. 10 years for destroying multiple families. I understand your anger. Do you? Do you have a 13-year-old daughter who cries herself to sleep wondering why her mother chose crime over family? Do you have a 15-year-old who's had to become an adult overnight because her mother's betrayal forced her to? Garcia leaned back in his chair. No, I don't. But I do have a job to do, and that job is to take down Lawson Wilson's entire network. Your wife is the key. Then use the key. But don't expect me to be happy about it. I'm not asking for your happiness. I'm asking for your cooperation. What kind of cooperation? He slid a folder across the table. Inside were surveillance photos Emerson with Lawson, but also with others I didn't recognize. Men in expensive suits, women who looked like they stepped out of fashion magazines. These are Lawson's associates. We believe your wife met with all of them over the past 2 years. We need to know what she knows accounts, transfer routes, names of other involved parties. She won't talk. Too stubborn. She might, if properly motivated. What kind of motivation? Garcia studied me for a moment. Your daughters. She still wants contact with them, doesn't she? The suggestion hit me like ice water. You want to use my children as bargaining chips? I want to use her maternal instincts to get information that could save lives. Lawson's drugs have killed 17 people in Albany alone this year. 17 people. 17 families destroyed like mine, but worse. Permanent. What would you need from me? Leverage. Information she doesn't know we have. Pressure points. I thought about the evidence in my home office, the credit card statements, the photos from Sunshine Luxury, the emails Addison had found. I might have something, I said slowly, but I want guarantees. My daughters are protected. My family's assets are protected, and Emerson serves real-time, deal or no deal. I can't guarantee the last part. Then I can't guarantee my cooperation. We stared at each other across the table, two men playing poker with other people's lives. I'll see what I can do, Garcia said finally. I left the FBI office feeling dirty, like I'd betrayed something fundamental about myself. Using my daughters as leverage, even indirectly, went against every instinct I had as a father. But then I thought about those 17 dead people, 17 families planning funerals instead of futures. My phone rang. Addison. Dad, where are you? Just finishing a meeting. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I found something. In Mom's email. Addison, you shouldn't be. Dad, just listen. There's an email thread with someone named Victoria Lane. They're talking about a gathering at the Capitol. This weekend. What kind of gathering? I don't know, but Mom promised to deliver something. A package. And there's mention of a celebration for Phase 2. Phase 2. If Phase 1 was setting up the money laundering, what was Phase 2? Send me everything, I said. And Addison, good work. Dad? Her voice got quiet. Are we going to be okay? Yeah, sweetheart. We're going to be okay. I drove home, my mind racing. A gathering at the Capitol. This weekend. It had to be connected to the ceremony, the one where Empire State Construction would be honored for the restoration project. The one I'd already decided would be the stage for exposing Emerson publicly. But what if there was more to it? What if Lawson's people were planning something bigger? At home, I found Harrison in my driveway, leaning against his car. We need to talk, he said. About? About the fact that my wife just got a call from Emerson's mother crying about how her daughter is innocent and we're all conspiring against her. I sighed. They don't know the truth. No, they don't, because they're living in a fantasy palace built with your stolen money. Harrison's jaw clenched. Allison tried to explain gently, but Linda Davis called her a liar and hung up. They'll learn the truth eventually. Will they? Or will they keep living in denial, funded by theft? What do you want me to do, Harrison? I want you to stop being so damn noble about it. Your wife is a criminal. Her parents are benefiting from crime. The FBI wants to give her a deal. At some point, you need to stop playing defense and start playing offense. What does that look like? It looks like using that ceremony this weekend to expose everything. Publicly, completely, no mercy. I stared at him. You know about the ceremony? Addison told Allison. Kid's worried about you, thinks you're planning something dramatic. She's not wrong. Good. Because I want in. Harrison. She destroyed my family too, Jensen. Nearly bankrupted us, traumatized Allison, stole our son's college fund. I deserve to be there when she faces consequences. He was right. This wasn't just my story. It was Harrison's, Allison's, even little Samuel's. Okay, I said. You're in. That evening I called a family meeting. Just the core group, me, Addison, Mackenzie, Harrison, and Allison. We sat around Harrison's dining room table, the same one where we'd shared countless Sunday dinners back when life was simpler. I need to tell you all something, I began. This Saturday, there's going to be a ceremony at the Capitol. Empire State Construction is being honored for restoration work. Your company, Allison said. It wasn't a question. Yes, and I'm going to use that ceremony to expose everything about Emerson, publicly. Mackenzie's eyes widened. In front of everyone? Yes. But Mom's already arrested. Why do we need to? Because she's trying to make a deal, Addison interrupted. Right, Dad? The FBI wants to let her off easy. I nodded. That's not fair. Mackenzie's voice cracked. She hurt us. I know, sweetheart. That's why we need to make sure everyone knows the truth. The whole truth. What about Grandma and Grandpa Davis? Mackenzie asked. Will they be there? I hadn't considered that. I don't know. They should be, Harrison said firmly. They should see what their daughter really is. That's cruel, Allison murmured. Is it? They're living in luxury bought with stolen money. They called you a liar when you tried to tell them the truth. Maybe public exposure is the only way they'll believe it. We debated for another hour, but in the end, the decision was made. Saturday would be the day of reckoning. The day all of Emerson's lies came crashing down. That night I couldn't sleep. I couldn't. I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the street where Emerson used to meet Lawson in secret, thinking she was so clever. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You don't know the whole truth. Saturday changes everything. Be ready. No signature, but somehow I knew. This was connected to Emerson, to Lawson, to whatever Phase 2 meant. I thought about calling Agent Garcia, but something held me back. Maybe it was stupid. Maybe it was dangerous, but I wanted to see how this played out. I wanted to know every secret, every scheme, every player in this game. Madison had called me the architect of revenge, and maybe she was right. But architects don't just tear down, they build. And what I was building was a foundation of truth so solid that no amount of lies could shake it. Saturday was coming. The Capitol ceremony would be the stage, but the performance? That would be pure, unfiltered justice. I picked up my phone and texted Garcia. The ceremony this Saturday. Be there. Bring backup. His response was immediate. What do you know? Not enough, but I will by Saturday. 3 days to prepare, 3 days to gather the final pieces. 3 days until the shell game ended and everyone saw what was really underneath. I thought about Emerson in her cell, probably planning her testimony against Lawson, thinking she was still in control. She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Chapter 7. Saturday morning arrived with unusual April warmth, the kind that makes Albany feel like spring might actually stick around this time. I stood in my kitchen at 5:47 a.m. making coffee and watching the sun paint the sky orange through the window. The same window where I'd watched Emerson's car disappear on all those nights she claimed to have client meetings. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Mackenzie had stayed at Allison and Harrison's last night. We'd all agreed it would be easier to get ready together, present a united front. But the emptiness echoed with 16 years of memories, each one now tainted by betrayal. My phone sat on the counter, that anonymous text still glowing in my mind. You don't know the whole truth. What truth could be left? I'd uncovered affairs, theft, money laundering, conspiracy. What more could there be? A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. This early, it could only be Addison? She stood on the porch in her Yale hoodie, the one she'd bought during a college tour Emerson had insisted we couldn't afford. I thought you were at Uncle Harrison's. Couldn't sleep. She came in, poured herself coffee like the adult she'd been forced to become. Dad, I need to tell you something. What is it? I did more digging last night. That Victoria Lane person Mom was emailing? She doesn't exist. What do you mean? It's an alias. I traced the IP addresses. All the emails came from the same location. Lawson's warehouse. So Lawson was using a fake name to communicate with your mom? Maybe, or... She hesitated. What if Mom wasn't the only one being played? Before I could respond, my phone rang. Agent Garcia. Thompson, we have a problem. Lawson made bail. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. How? High-powered lawyer showed up with $2 million cash. Judge had no choice. He's going to run. We have surveillance on him. But Thompson, if he shows up at that ceremony... He will, I said with sudden certainty. That's what the text meant. He's planning something. What text? I forwarded him the anonymous message. Could hear him cursing in Spanish on the other end. We need to cancel the ceremony, he said. No. This is our chance to get him, to expose everything. This isn't a movie, Thompson. Real people could get hurt. Real people are already hurt. My family, Harrison's family, those 17 dead from his drugs. If we cancel now, he disappears and Emerson takes the fall alone. That's not your call to make. Isn't it? It's my company being honored. My family he destroyed. My wife he turned into a criminal. Garcia was quiet for a long moment. If we do this, we do it my way. Full surveillance, undercover agents everywhere. The moment anything seems off, we shut it down. Agreed. After he hung up, Addison and I cleaned up the broken mug in silence. The irony wasn't lost on me picking up shattered pieces, just like our lives. Dad, she said quietly, what if Mom really was being manipulated too? What if she was as much a victim as she made choices? I interrupted, harder than I meant to. She chose to forge documents, chose to steal, chose to have an affair. Being manipulated doesn't erase that. But it might explain it. I looked at my 15-year-old daughter, wise beyond her years but still hoping for some explanation that would make her mother's betrayal less absolute. Maybe, I conceded. But explanations aren't excuses. By 9 a.m., we'd gathered at Harrison's house. Allison had laid out clothes for everyone respectable, but not flashy, the kind of outfits that said supportive family rather than victims seeking revenge. Mackenzie sat on the couch, staring at a photo on her phone. It was from last year's Christmas, all of us around the tree. Emerson's smile bright and seemingly genuine. Were any of the happy times real? She asked no one in particular. They were real to us, Allison said gently, sitting beside her. That's what matters. Harrison emerged from the kitchen, phone in hand. Local news just picked up the story. Disgraced financial advisor's family to attend capital ceremony. They're speculating about whether we'll make a statement. Let them speculate, I said. They'll have their story soon enough. The plan was simple, at least on paper. We'd attend the ceremony as a family. I'd accept the recognition for Empire State Construction's restoration work. Then, when given the chance to speak, I'd reveal everything, my true identity, Emerson's crimes, the whole shell game. But now, with Lawson out on bail and anonymous threats in play, simple felt dangerously naive. Madison Johnson called as we were getting ready to leave. Jensen, I've filed the capital clause paperwork. As of this morning, Emerson has no claim to any of your assets. Also, I've been contacted by 3 other families. What families? Other women Lawson was involved with. Other husbands whose identities were stolen for shell companies. You're not alone in this. Not alone. The words should have been comforting, but they just made me feel worse. How many families had Lawson and Emerson destroyed? Will they be at the ceremony? I asked. 2 of them will. They want to see justice served too. At 11 a.m., we loaded into 2 cars, me driving with my daughters, Harrison following with Allison and Samuel. The drive to the Capitol felt both endless and too quick, like approaching an inevitable storm. Dad, Mackenzie said from the back seat, what if Mom shows up? She won't, sweetheart. She can't. But Lawson's out. What if he brings her somehow? I met Addison's eyes in the rearview mirror. We'd had the same thought. Then we face them, I said. together. The Capitol looked magnificent in the afternoon sun, its newly restored dome gleaming like a promise. Ironic, considering what was about to happen on its steps. Media vans were already there, reporters setting up for what they thought would be a routine ceremony. They had no idea they were about to witness the complete destruction of a woman's carefully constructed lies. Agent Garcia met us at the security checkpoint, dressed in a maintenance uniform. "We have 12 agents in position," he said quietly. "Any sign of Lawson, we move. And if Emerson somehow... She's in federal custody. Transport to the courthouse for arraignment on Monday. She's not going anywhere." But as we walked toward the gathering crowd, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something. That anonymous text kept echoing. "You don't know the whole truth." The ceremony space was set up with rows of white chairs facing a small podium. Maybe 100 people were already seated: state officials, construction workers, members of the press. I recognized some of Empire State Construction's employees, men and women who'd worked alongside me for years, never knowing I was their boss. "Jensen." I turned to see Bob Mitchell, the foreman who'd sent me home with the flu that day I'd discovered Emerson with another man in our house. "Bob," I shook his hand, noting his confusion. "What are you doing here? Thought this was for the big shots at Empire State." "Just supporting the company," I said. "We all worked on that restoration." "True enough. Hey, sorry about your wife. Heard about the arrest." "That's rough, man." "Thanks." He clapped me on the shoulder and moved on. No idea he'd just offered condolences to a billionaire. We took our seats in the third row. Harrison on my left, Addison on my right, Mackenzie between her and Allison, a united front. At 11:45, 15 minutes before the ceremony was to begin, I saw them. Robert and Linda Davis, Emerson's parents, being escorted to seats in the back. They looked confused, uncertain why they were there. Madison's doing, I realized. She'd made sure they'd witnessed their daughter's complete exposure. At 11:50, a commotion at the back. Reporters suddenly rushing toward someone. My blood froze. Emerson. She walked through the crowd in a conservative black dress, not handcuffs. Free. Beside her was a man I recognized from the surveillance photos, not Lawson, but one of his lawyers. "How?" Harrison breathed. I pulled out my phone, called Garcia. "She's here." "Impossible." "She's in..." I heard him radio someone, then curse. "Emergency bail hearing this morning. Judge granted it. We weren't notified." "Lawson's judge? Has to be." Emerson's eyes found mine across the crowd. She smiled, not warm, not cold, just confident, like she knew something I didn't. "Dad," Mackenzie whispered, "I want to leave." "We're staying," I said, though every paternal instinct screamed to get my daughters away from her. Emerson made her way closer, reporters following. She stopped 2 rows behind us, close enough to hear her whisper to her lawyer, "Right on schedule." Schedule. This was planned. All of it. The ceremony began with typical government fanfare, the State Commissioner of Public Works taking the podium, thanking everyone for coming, praising the restoration project. I barely heard any of it. My entire focus was on the woman behind me, the woman I'd loved for 16 years, the woman who'd destroyed everything. "And now," the commissioner announced, "I'd like to invite the owner of Empire State Construction to say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, Jensen Thompson." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The workers who knew me as a painter, the reporters who'd researched the company, Emerson's parents, who thought their son-in-law was a nobody, and Emerson herself, whose confident smile finally faltered. I stood, straightened my tie, and walked to the podium. The microphone hummed with possibility, with truth about to be unleashed. "Good afternoon," I began, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. "My name is Jensen Thompson. For the past 3 years, you've known me as a painter. But that was a lie I told to see if I was loved for who I am, not what I have." I paused, found my daughters' faces in the crowd. Addison nodded encouragement. Mackenzie looked terrified but determined. "I own Empire State Construction. I've owned it since 2007 when I inherited it from Harold Morrison. I'm worth approximately $2.4 billion. More gasps, cameras clicking furiously. "But I'm not here to talk about my lie. I'm here to talk about hers." I turned, looked directly at Emerson. My wife, Emerson Thompson, has been arrested for money laundering, fraud, and identity theft. She created shell companies using my name and my brother-in-law's name. She stole from our retirement accounts. She betrayed every trust, broke every vow. Emerson stood up. Jensen, stop. She had an affair with Lawson Wilson, a known criminal. She planned to kidnap our younger daughter and flee the country. That's not true, Emerson's voice cracked. I can explain. Explain? I pulled out the folder Madison had prepared. Explain these forged documents? These bank statements? These photos of you with Lawson? I held up each piece of evidence, the crowd pressing closer to see. Explain to our daughters why you chose crime over family. Explain to Harrison why you nearly bankrupted him. Explain to your parents why they're living in luxury bought with stolen money. Her parents' faces went white. They'd finally heard the truth. But Emerson wasn't done. She pushed past people, approached the podium. You want the truth? She said into the microphone she grabbed from my hand. The truth is, my husband is a liar who's been deceiving everyone for years. The truth is, the gunshot cut her off. Screams erupted. People dove for cover, but it wasn't a real gun. It was Agent Garcia firing into the air, his FBI badge now visible. Everyone remain calm, he shouted. Emerson Thompson, you're under arrest for violation of bail conditions. As agents moved in to cuff her again, she looked at me with something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Defeat. I loved you, she said quietly, just for me. Before I knew about the money, before Lawson, I loved you. That was real. Maybe, I said, but it wasn't enough. They led her away, past her sobbing parents, past our traumatized daughters, past the cameras capturing every moment. But the ceremony wasn't over, because walking through the crowd, pushing reporters aside, came Lawson Wilson himself. Quite a show, he said, approaching the podium. But you still don't know everything, Thompson. Garcia's agents moved to arrest him, but he held up a hand. I'm here legally. Out on bail, remember? Just came to watch the fireworks. What fireworks? I asked. He smiled, cold and calculating. The ones that start when everyone learns what your wife was really doing. See, the money laundering? That was just the beginning. Phase 1, you might say. And Phase 2? Phase 2 was going to be beautiful. Use your company's contracts to funnel money. Government projects. All that federal cash. Your wife had it all planned out. But she's caught. It's over. Is it? He pulled out his phone, showed me a message. She sent this an hour ago. Details about every government official we've been bribing, every contract that's dirty, every company involved. My stomach dropped. This would destroy not just Emerson, but dozens of others. Maybe hundreds. What do you want? Nothing. Just wanted you to know that your revenge, it's going to take down half of Albany's government with it. He laughed. Your wife might be a criminal, but she was a smart one. Dead man's switch. She goes down, everyone goes down. He walked away, leaving me standing at the podium with a choice. Suppress the truth to protect the innocent, or let it all burn. I looked at my daughters, at Harrison and Allison, at the Capitol building I'd helped restore. Then I spoke into the microphone one last time. The truth needs to come out, all of it, no matter the cost. Because that's what justice looked like. Not clean, not simple, not painless, but necessary. The storm had arrived, and we would weather it together, as a family, what was left of one anyway. Chapter 8. The Capitol steps were empty now, except for the yellow police tape fluttering in the April wind like a flag of surrender. 24 hours had passed since I'd stood at that podium and blown up my life in front of half of Albany. 24 hours since they'd dragged Emerson away in handcuffs, screaming about innocence while the evidence of her guilt sat displayed for all to see. I stood there now, alone, watching the sunrise paint the dome gold. Same view I'd had 1,000 times from my scaffolding. Different man looking at it. Thought I'd find you here. Agent Garcia walked up beside me, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He offered me one. Thanks. The warmth felt good against my palms. How bad is it? Define bad. The corruption, The other officials Lawson mentioned. Garcia took a long sip before answering. 7 state employees arrested so far. 3 more under investigation. Your wife's records were thorough. She always was detail-oriented. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. The district attorney wants to talk to you. Media wants statements. Your phone's probably exploding. I'd turned it off after the 100th call last night. Reporters, lawyers, people I hadn't talked to in years, suddenly concerned about my well-being. Vultures circling what they thought was a carcass. My daughters, I said instead. How are they? Your sister called the field office. Said to tell you the girls are okay. Mackenzie's sleeping. Addison's. Coping. Coping. Such a small word for such a big process. Thompson. Garcia's voice changed, got softer. What you did yesterday took guts. But you know it's not over, right? I know. Lawson's lawyer is already working angles, claims entrapment, says you orchestrated everything to frame his client. I actually laughed. I orchestrated my wife stealing $500,000 and having an affair? I'm just telling you what's coming. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. Can't get much uglier than yesterday. You'd be surprised. We stood there drinking coffee, watching the city wake up. Albany looked different now, or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time. No more facades, no more paint covering the cracks. There's something else, Garcia said. Emerson wants to see you. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. No. She says she has information about other accounts, other players, things she didn't put in writing. She's lying, maybe, but the U.S. attorney thinks it's worth hearing. The answer's still no. Garcia nodded like he'd expected that. Your choice. But Thompson? Sometimes facing them helps. Closure, you know? Closure. Like you could just close the door on 16 years of marriage, 2 kids, a life built on lies. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I turned it back on walking here, and the messages hadn't stopped flooding in. But this one was from Addison. Dad, come home, please. I have to go, I told Garcia. The media's camped outside your house, and your sisters might want to use the back route. Let them wait. I'm done hiding. The drive to Harrison's house felt like crossing a battlefield. News vans on every corner, reporters doing stand-ups with the Capitol as backdrop. Billionaire's Revenge, the morning paper called it. Like this was some movie instead of my life falling apart. I pulled into Harrison's driveway to find my brother-in-law sitting on the porch steps, still in yesterday's clothes. You look like hell, he said. You too. Allison's making breakfast, acting like if she feeds everyone enough pancakes, this will all go away. If only. Harrison stood up, looked me straight in the eye. What you did yesterday. I wanted to punch you and hug you at the same time. Which one? Jury's still out. But he stepped aside. Let me pass. Girls are in the kitchen. I found my daughters exactly where Harrison said, Mackenzie pushing food around her plate while Addison stared at her phone. They both looked up when I walked in, and the relief on their faces nearly broke me. Dad! Mackenzie ran to me, buried her face in my chest. People are saying terrible things online. About Mom, about you, about us. Don't read it, sweetheart. None of it matters. But they're calling Mom a monster and saying you're just as bad for lying about the money. Addison looked up from her phone. 37 news outlets have covered the story. We're trending on Twitter. Someone made a meme out of Mom's mugshot. Addison. I'm just saying we're famous now, or infamous. Is there a difference? Stop it, Mackenzie said, tears starting again. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing, Addison shot back. I'm processing. We all process differently. Allison came in with a plate of pancakes, took one look at us, and set them down carefully. Family meeting. Living room. Now. We gathered like refugees, Harrison and Allison on one couch, me and the girls on the other. Samuel played with blocks in the corner, the only one untouched by the chaos. First things first, Allison said in her teacher voice. School. The girls aren't going back this week. I've already called, explained the situation. I have a chemistry test, Addison protested. It can wait, I said. Your safety comes first. Safety? Dad, we're not in danger. Harrison and I exchanged glances. She didn't know about the other families Lawson had targeted, the threats that came with taking down a crime network. There are photographers at the school, Allison said gently. Reporters trying to interview your classmates. It's better if you stay home for now. For how long? Mackenzie asked. Until things calm down, I said, though I had no idea when that would be. What about Mom? Mackenzie's voice was small. When can we see her? The room went quiet. Even Samuel stopped playing, sensing the tension. Your mother is going to be away for a while, I said carefully. How long is a while? I don't know yet. But she'll come back, right? After she says sorry and pays a fine or whatever? Addison made a sound of disgust. Mackenzie, she's not getting a parking ticket. She committed federal crimes. She made mistakes. She stole $500,000. She cheated on Dad. She tried to kidnap you. She's still our mother. No. Addison stood up, fists clenched. Our mother died when she chose crime over family. That woman they arrested, that's someone else. Mackenzie started sobbing. I pulled her close while Addison stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I'll go, Harrison said, but I shook my head. Let her cool off. She needs space. You all need therapy, Allison said bluntly. This is too big to handle alone. She was right. But the thought of sitting in some office, talking about feelings while reporters circled like sharks, felt impossible. My phone rang. Madison Johnson. Jensen, we need to meet. The FBI found something in Emerson's safety deposit box. What kind of something? The kind that changes everything. How soon can you get to my office? I looked at Mackenzie, still crying in my arms, at Allison trying to hold everything together, at Harrison looking lost in his own home. Give me an hour. Make it 30 minutes. And Jensen, bring the girls. Why? Because what's in this box concerns them too. The line went dead. I stood up, decision made. Girls, get your coats. We're going to see Madison. But Addison, Mackenzie started. I'll get her. I found my oldest daughter in the backyard throwing rocks at a tree with devastating accuracy. Good arm, I said. I'm imagining it's Mom's face. Addison, don't. She threw another rock, harder. Don't tell me to forgive her. Don't tell me she's still my mother. Don't tell me this will get easier. I wasn't going to. She paused mid-throw. Then what? I was going to say I'm proud of you, for being strong, for protecting your sister, for helping expose the truth. The rock fell from her hand. I feel like I betrayed her, even though she betrayed us first. You didn't betray anyone. You chose truth over lies. That's never wrong. Then why does it hurt so much? I pulled her into a hug, felt her shoulders shake. Because love and pain aren't opposites, sweetheart. Sometimes they're the same thing. We stood there while she cried, my fierce daughter who'd tried so hard to be strong finally letting herself break a little. Madison found something, I said when she was ready. In Mom's safety deposit box. She wants us all there. What kind of something? I don't know, but we need to face it together. She pulled back, wiped her eyes. Together. Always. The ride to Madison's office was quiet, all three of us lost in our thoughts. The media had found us, following at a distance like predators waiting for the weak to fall behind. But we weren't weak. Broken, maybe. Hurt, definitely. But not weak. We were Thompsons. And despite everything Emerson had done, that still meant something. It had to. Chapter 9. Madison's office felt different with my daughters there. Smaller somehow, like the leather chairs and law books were pressing in on us. She'd cleared her desk except for a single manila envelope and a metal box that looked like it had seen better days. Thank you for coming, she said, but her usual professional smile was missing. Please, sit. We arranged ourselves carefully, me in the middle, protective walls around my girls. Mackenzie grabbed my hand. Addison sat rigid, ready for another blow. Before we begin, Madison said, I need you to understand that what I'm about to show you doesn't change the criminal charges against Emerson, but it does complicate things. How much more complicated can it get? Addison asked. Madison opened the envelope, pulled out a photograph, old, yellowed at the edges. a young woman holding a baby, terror in her eyes. "That's Mom," Mackenzie whispered. "But younger. Who's the baby?" "You, actually," Madison said gently. "This was taken when you were 3 months old." I studied the photo closer. Emerson looked exhausted, frightened. Nothing like the confident woman I'd married. "I don't understand," I said. Madison pulled out a document. "This is a police report from 1997. Emerson Davis, age 19, filed charges against Thomas Lawson Wilson's older brother. Assault, extortion, threats against her family." The room spun slightly. She knew Lawson before? Thomas Lawson ran a loan shark operation in Troy. Emerson's father borrowed money he couldn't repay. When Thomas came to collect, 19-year-old Emerson tried to stop him. He broke her arm in 3 places. Mackenzie gasped. Addison's face had gone pale. "The charges were dropped," Madison continued. "Thomas had connections, good lawyers, but he never forgot the girl who stood up to him. When he died in prison 5 years ago, he left instructions for his brother. Lawson was to find Emerson and, quote, collect what was owed with interest." "So Lawson targeted her?" I asked, mind reeling. "It appears so. These are emails from 2008, right after your supposed paint store raise, Jensen. Lawson had approached Emerson, threatened to hurt her family, specifically you and the girls, unless she helped him launder money." "No." Addison shook her head. "No, she chose this. She had an affair." "The affair was likely part of his control," Madison said softly. "Classic manipulation. Make the victim complicit. Make them feel they chose it. Ensure they can't go to authorities without implicating themselves." I thought about all those late nights, the tears I'd heard through the bathroom door, the fear I'd mistaken for guilt. "She could have told me," I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew how hollow they sounded. "Could she? You were hiding billions of dollars. She was being blackmailed by a crime family. Neither of you trusted the other enough with the truth." "Don't!" Addison stood up, shaking. "Don't you dare make her the victim here. She stole, she lied, she was going to kidnap Mackenzie." "The kidnapping plan was Lawson's idea," Madison interrupted. "We found his original messages. He threatened to kill you, Addison, if Emerson didn't deliver Mackenzie to him. Insurance, he called it." Addison sat down hard, all fight gone. "Why didn't she just tell someone?" Mackenzie asked through tears. "The police, Dad? Anyone?" "Because Lawson had proof of her crimes by then. 2 years of money laundering, fraud, theft. She was trapped." I stared at the metal box. "What else is in there?" Madison opened it carefully. Inside were 3 envelopes, each with a name: Addison, Mackenzie, Jensen. She wrote these the night before the Capitol ceremony. The safety deposit record shows she went there at 11 p.m. After she got bail, I realized. She knew what was coming. "May I?" Madison gestured to the letters. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She opened mine first, read aloud. "Jensen. By the time you read this, you'll know everything, or think you do. The truth is both simpler and more complicated than what you'll hear in court. I loved you. That was real. Before the money, before Lawson, before the lies, I loved the man who painted the Capitol with such care, who sang off-key in the shower, who read stories to our girls with different voices for every character. I know about Empire State Construction. Have known for a year. I found the papers while looking for Christmas decorations in the basement. I should have been angry about your deception, but all I felt was relief. It meant you'd understand why I couldn't tell you about Lawson. We were both liars, just in different ways. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But please, don't let the girls hate me forever. Tell them I was weak, not evil. Tell them every bedtime story, every birthday cake, every proud moment at their soccer games was real. The love was always real, even when nothing else was. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to be the wife you deserved or the mother they needed. But I tried to protect them the only way I knew how, by becoming the monster, so they wouldn't have to face one. The room was silent, except for Mackenzie's quiet sobs. "Read mine," Addison said, voice hollow. Madison opened the second letter. "My brilliant, brave Addison. You're the one who figured it out, aren't you? I always knew you would. You have your father's integrity and my stubbornness, a dangerous combination. I'm not going to insult you with excuses. You deserve better. But I want you to know that every time I pushed you to be strong, independent, fearless, it was because I knew this day would come. I was preparing you to survive without me. You'll be angry for a long time. That's okay. Use that anger. Channel it into something powerful. Become the FBI agent you talked about. Save other families from people like Lawson. Be the hero I couldn't be. Take care of your sister. She's softer than you, needs more protection. And take care of your father. He's going to blame himself for not seeing, not saving me. Tell him it's not his fault. I chose to hide in shadows rather than trust in his light. I love you beyond words, my fierce girl. Even when you hate me, remember that. Mom? Addison was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face. Mackenzie? Madison asked gently. My youngest nodded, gripping my hand tighter. My sweet Mackenzie, this will hurt you most, and I'm so sorry. You still believe in good and bad, black and white. The truth is, most of us live in gray. I want you to know that every moment of love you felt from me was real. Every hug, every kiss, every time I told you I was proud of you, all real. The crimes don't erase the love. They exist together, complicated and messy, like life. You'll wonder if you could have saved me if you'd known. You couldn't have, baby. This started before you were born, a debt I inherited and couldn't escape. But you're free. You and Addison both. Stay kind, my darling girl. The world will try to harden you after this, but don't let it. Your kindness is strength, not weakness. Your father will need that kindness. Addison will too, even if she won't admit it. Someday when you're older, maybe you'll understand. Maybe you'll even forgive me. But even if you don't, know that you were the best thing I ever did. You and your sister were worth everything, even this ending. All my love, Mom. Mackenzie broke down completely, sobbing into my chest. Addison moved closer, putting an arm around her sister. There's one more thing, Madison said quietly. She pulled out a bank statement. A separate account in trust for the girls. Clean money her legitimate earnings from before Lawson. She never touched it, even when desperate. $47,000 for their education. We don't want it, Addison said immediately. Yes, we do, Mackenzie countered. It's the only clean thing she left us. They looked at me, waiting. It's your choice, I said. Both of you have to agree. The silence stretched until finally Addison spoke. We keep it, but we donate half to victims of financial crimes. That's perfect, Mackenzie whispered. Madison nodded, making notes. I'll arrange it. What happens now? I asked. With the trial? The letters don't change the charges, but they provide context. The judge will consider the coercion factor. Instead of 30 years, maybe 15. With good behavior, she could be out in 10. 10 years. Mackenzie would be 23. Addison, 25. Still young enough to rebuild a relationship if they wanted. Will she testify against Lawson? Addison asked. She already has, gave the FBI everything yesterday. Lawson's looking at life without parole. Some small justice, then. We left Madison's office different than we'd entered. Not healed, that would take years, but somehow steadier. The truth, complete now, was easier to carry than the fragments had been. Outside, reporters swarmed, but I felt Addison and Mackenzie stand taller beside me. Mr. Thompson, how do you feel about your wife's sentence? Do you regret exposing her? What will happen to your daughters? I stopped, turned to the cameras. My girls stood with me, united. Our family has been through hell, I said clearly. We're still going through it, but we're together, we're strong, and we're going to heal. That's all that matters. But your wife, their mother is facing the consequences of her actions. We wish her peace and hope she finds redemption. Now please, let us grieve in private. I put my arms around my daughters and walked through the crowd. They parted like water, something in our faces warning them not to push. In the car, Mackenzie asked, Did you mean it? About hoping Mom finds redemption? I thought about Emerson's letter, about the frightened 19-year-old in that photo, about the woman who'd loved us even while lying to us. Yeah, I said. I meant it. Good, she said, leaning against my shoulder. Me too. Addison reached over from the back seat, squeezed my hand. We're going to be okay, aren't we? I looked at my daughters, damaged but not destroyed, hurt but still hopeful. We're going to be better than okay, I promised. We're going to be honest. And for the first time since this all began, I actually believed it. Chapter 10. 6 months later, the new house smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Nothing fancy. I'd learned my lesson about facades, just a solid colonial in a quiet neighborhood where the reporters had finally stopped circling. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a kitchen with windows that actually opened. Real life, not performance. "Dad, you're burning the eggs again," Addison called from the table where she was studying for her SATs. "They're not burned, they're caramelized." "That's not a thing with eggs," Mackenzie laughed, taking over the pan. She'd gotten good at cooking these past months, said it helped her feel in control of something. I watched my daughters navigate around each other in our small kitchen and felt that familiar mix of pride and sorrow. They'd grown up so fast, forced to mature by circumstances I'd never wanted for them. The doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Addison said, but I was already moving. "Let me." Could be another reporter. But it wasn't. Harrison stood there with a casserole dish and a tentative smile. "Allison made too much lasagna," he said. "Thought you guys might want some." It was a lie. Allison never made too much of anything accidentally, but I appreciated the gesture. They'd been doing this for months, small kindnesses disguised as coincidences. "Come in," I said. "Coffee's fresh." We sat at the kitchen table, the 4 of us, eating eggs that were definitely burned and pretending things were normal. Almost succeeding. "So," Harrison said carefully, "I heard back from that investigator, the one tracking down the other families Lawson scammed. And 4 families want to meet, support group kind of thing, share stories, maybe heal together." Mackenzie looked interested. "Other kids whose parents?" "Yeah, couple near your age." "I want to go," she said immediately. Addison shrugged. "Might be good to know we're not alone in this." We weren't alone. That had been the biggest surprise. The community that had seemed ready to devour us during the scandal had slowly embraced us after. Neighbors brought food, teachers offered extra support, even Bob Mitchell from the painting crew had stopped by to check on us. "You still painting?" he'd asked. "Not the Capitol anymore." "Shame. You were good at it, making things look better than they were." "That was the problem, Bob." "No," he disagreed. "Problem was forgetting what was underneath. Paint's not supposed to hide things, just protect them." I'd thought about that a lot since. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, but I recognized the prefix. Federal prison. "I need to take this," I said, stepping outside. I didn't answer. I never did. But I listened to the voicemails sometimes, late at night when the girls were asleep. This one was different, though. Not Emerson's voice. "Mr. Thompson, this is Warden Davies at Bedford Hills. Your wife. There's been an incident. She's in the medical wing. Stable, but she's asking for you. For the girls. I know the situation, but I thought you should know." I stood in my backyard, looking at the foundation of the patio I'd been building with the girls. Concrete and rebar, nothing fancy, but solid. True. "Dad?" Addison had followed me out. "Was that?" "The prison. Your mom's in the medical wing." Her face went through several emotions before landing on concern. "Is she okay?" "Stable," they said. "Do you want to?" "It's not about what I want." She stood beside me, looking at our half-built patio. "Mackenzie would want to go." "And you?" "I don't know. Maybe. Is that terrible?" "No. It's honest." We went back inside, told Mackenzie and Harrison. Had a family meeting right there, lasagna getting cold while we debated. "She's still our mother," Mackenzie said. "She's a criminal," Addison countered, but with less venom than before. "She's both," I said. "And she's human. Humans get hurt. Maybe need to see their families." "Would she come if we were hurt?" Addison asked. "In a heartbeat," Mackenzie said. "Even now, even from prison, she'd find a way." Addison didn't argue. We all knew it was true. "I'll call the warden," I decided. "See what's allowed. Then you girls can decide." 2 days later, we drove to Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. The girls had debated what to wear, settling on simple, respectful clothes. Not trying to impress, not trying to punish, just being themselves. The visiting room was sterile, fluorescent lights making everyone look sick. Emerson was already there when we entered, left arm in a sling, face pale and thin. She looked up, saw us, and started crying. "I didn't think you'd come." "Neither did we," Addison said, but she sat down. Mackenzie was less reserved, reaching across the table to take her mother's good hand. "What happened?" "Disagreement with another inmate. About debts. Ironic, right?" Nobody laughed. "I'm sorry," Emerson said. "Not just for this, for everything. For choosing wrong every time there was a choice." "The letters," I said, "about Lawson's brother, the threats. Was that true?" "Yes, but it doesn't excuse what I became. I could have trusted you, could have been honest. I chose fear instead." "We all chose fear," I admitted. "I hid my money because I was afraid of being used. You hid your crimes because you were afraid of losing us. Fear made liars of us both." "But you didn't steal," Addison pointed out. "You didn't betray anyone." "Didn't I? I watched Harrison struggle financially while sitting on billions. I let you grow up thinking we couldn't afford things. Different kind of theft, maybe, but still taking something that wasn't mine to take your trust in appearances." Emerson studied me. "You've been in therapy. We all have. It helps." "Good." The silence stretched, not comfortable but not unbearable either. "I'm going to serve my full sentence," Emerson said finally. "No early release, no deals. I need to. I need to earn my way back to deserving you, all of you." "Mom," Mackenzie squeezed her hand, "you don't have to earn our love. But I do have to earn your trust. And that takes time. Years, probably." "We have time," Mackenzie said. "Some of us do," Addison corrected, but softer than before. We talked for the full hour. Not about the past that was too raw, about now, school, the new house, Mackenzie's improved cooking, Addison's college applications, normal things that felt extraordinary in that setting. When time was up, Emerson stood carefully, favoring her injured side. "Thank you," she said, "for coming, for not giving up entirely." "We're not promising anything," I said. "This isn't forgiveness. It's process. Process is enough. Process is everything." The girls hugged her, carefully because of the sling, even Addison, though she pulled away quickly. "Can we come again?" Mackenzie asked. "Once a month," I said. "If you want. Both of you have to agree." They looked at each other, had one of those silent conversations that sisters perfect over years. "Once a month," Addison agreed. Driving home, the car was quiet but not heavy. There was something clean in the air, like after a storm passes. "Are we really going to be okay?" Mackenzie asked. I thought about the question, really considered it. We'd lost so much trust, innocence, the illusion of perfect family. But we'd gained things too. Honesty, resilience, the knowledge that we could survive the worst and still choose kindness. "Look at us," I said. "We just visited your mother in prison and we're still here, still together, still trying. If that's not okay, I don't know what is." "It's not the life we planned," Addison said. "No, but maybe that's good. Our plans were built on lies. Whatever this is, it's built on truth." We pulled into our driveway as the sun was setting, painting our simple house gold. Not the capital's gold, not grand or impressive, just warm, real. Harrison's car was there, Allison and Samuel on our porch with what looked like dinner. "Family meeting?" Allison called out. "Always," I called back. We went inside together, all of us, blood and chosen family mixing into something new, something honest. The patio foundation had dried that morning, ready for the next layer. Tomorrow, the girls and I would lay stones, build something useful and lasting, not hiding anything, just creating space for whatever came next. Emerson was right, process was everything. And we were still in process, might always be. But that was okay. Better than okay, it was honest. And after everything, honest was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. What struck me most about Jensen's story wasn't the billions or the betrayal, it was how two people who claimed to love each other could live such elaborate lies for years, each convinced they were protecting their family while actually destroying it. The saddest part is wondering, if either of them had just been honest from the beginning, could they have faced Lawson's threats together and avoided this tragedy entirely? It makes you question every relationship where someone says, I'm lying to protect you, because in the end, those lies protected no one.